as the sun slips below the distant ridge, painting jagged patterns that twist and flicker with every gust of wind. And Orhan Bey adjusts his stance imperceptibly, sensing every vibration, noting every glint, every ripple and dust, every faint movement of grass, integrating all into a mental map that spans every ridge, shadow, and concealed path, while his Alps shift silently to cover all approaches, creating an invisible lattice of observation, anticipation, and readiness designed to dominate the battlefield before any engagement begins. From a distant slope, a faint shimmer of movement signals the enemy testing his perception, attempting to gauge reactions and provoke missteps. But Orhan's gaze locks instantly, tracking trajectory, velocity, intent, and alignment with flawless calculation, and his mind layers dozens of potential outcomes, integrating them with terrain, wind, shadow, and the positioning of his Alps, who adjust seamlessly, reinforcing arcs of coverage, establishing invisible control over every pathway, and preparing for the moment when decisive action will convert observation, patience, and awareness into precision that cannot be countered. He breathes slowly, rhythmically, each inhalation and exhalation measured, aligning body, mind, and environment into a unified sequence of readiness, while every ridge, shadow, and fissure becomes part of his awareness, cataloged and assessed for threat, opportunity, or manipulation, and the plateau itself transforms into a living instrument, responding to his presence, his movements, his commands, with each micro-adjustment of stance or glance shifting probability in his favor, ensuring that the first act of engagement flows entirely from preparation, not reaction, and that control of events remains entirely in his hands. A low whisper of movement in the distance draws his attention to a ridge partially hidden by shadows, and Orhan traces the subtle displacement of dust, the faint glimmer of metal, the almost imperceptible sway of foliage, calculating not only the immediate threat but the sequence of potential consequences, preparing contingencies that extend beyond sight and sound, integrating every variable into his mental map while signaling his Alps imperceptibly, ensuring that the battlefield is saturated with awareness, anticipation, and readiness, so that every maneuver is accounted for before it even begins to unfold. The mastermind steps lightly across a shallow depression, cloak brushing faintly against jagged rock edges, his posture deliberate, almost fluid, and Orhan observes every micromotion. The weight shift, the alignment of shoulders, the subtle rhythm of steps, integrating them into probabilities, anticipating response, and projecting sequences of engagement in real time, while his Alps fan out in perfect synchronization, establishing coverage, dominance, and anticipation across every axis of approach, demonstrating that mastery is not reaction, but the ability to bend every element of environment, enemy, and timing to intent before the first move is made. Orhan Bey speaks quietly, deliberately, his voice cutting through the tension of the plateau without breaking silence, carrying authority that resonates across the terrain. Every shadow, every ridge, every hidden path is accounted for. Every movement is observed, every intent anticipated. Patience, observation, and awareness are not passive. They are the instruments by which I will define the outcome, shape the battlefield, and act with precision when the exact moment arrives, transforming preparation into execution that leaves no margin for error, hesitation, or miscalculation. The wind twists through narrow fissures in the rocks, carrying the scent of dust, iron, and faint smoke from distant skirmishes, and Orhan's eyes follow each motion, each ripple, each subtle disturbance in the environment, calculating sequences, preparing contingencies, and integrating new variables seamlessly into his mental map, while the Alps adjust without signal, extending his awareness, reinforcing arcs of control, and ensuring that the terrain itself becomes an instrument of strategy, anticipation, and dominance, where each movement and breath flows according to design rather than chance. A glint of sunlight catches the edge of a cliff above, revealing a faint silhouette, a scout perhaps, a test of perception, and Orhan tracks the figure with unerring precision, predicting sequence, speed, and intention while signaling imperceptibly to his Alps to cover every angle, every approach, and every potential line of engagement, transforming observation into preemptive dominance, awareness into anticipation, and patience into a weapon that allows the battlefield itself to bend toward his strategy, ensuring that the first decisive movement will emerge entirely from his calculation rather than from reaction to the enemy's provocations. The mastermind's voice drifts softly across the plateau, measured and calm, carrying the weight of experience and strategy. Endurance, observation, and patience have brought you here, but mastery is proven only through decisive action. Will you impose your will, shape events, and act before chaos dictates outcomes, or will hesitation allow opportunity to slip? Orhan responds, eyes unwavering, posture deliberate. Control is not earned by circumstance, nor mastery claimed through hesitation. Every observation, every calculation, every adjustment integrates into sequences that will define action, ensuring that timing, precision, and intent shape the outcome rather than the unpredictability of chance. The plateau grows colder as shadows deepen. Dust swirls along jagged ridges, faint sounds echo across hidden fissures, and Orhan sweeps his gaze across the terrain, noting every nuance, anticipating every movement, integrating each detail into his mental map while his Alps fan out into perfect alignment, reinforcing positions, coverage, and readiness, converting awareness, observation, and patience into a lattice of control that dominates the battlefield before any engagement occurs. Ensuring that victory will be determined not by reaction, but by the clarity, timing, and precision of his own intent. The light continues to fade, and the jagged cliffs transform into dark silhouettes, while Orhan Bey's gaze sweeps every shadow, every ridge, every subtle shift in terrain, calculating movement, intent, and consequence, integrating every micro-change into a dynamic mental map, while his Alps shift like extensions of his awareness, covering approaches, gaps, and angles of potential attack, demonstrating that true mastery is not in reaction, but in shaping the battlefield-bending environment. Perception and timing to his will before a single action is demanded. A faint glimmer catches his eye, reflected off a distant rock, signaling the presence of scouts or traps, and Orhan immediately projects multiple sequences of response, adjusting stance, position, and micro-movements, integrating every possible outcome into his strategy while his Alps fan out, moving silently, positioning themselves to dominate lines of sight, movement, and timing, reinforcing his lattice of control, and preparing for the moment when observation, patience, and anticipation must converge into decisive action that leaves no margin for error. The mastermind steps forward, each motion precise, deliberate, and unhurried, like a shadow moving across the plateau, and Orhan notes the weight distribution, the subtle alignment of shoulders, and the rhythm of his steps, integrating these cues into his mental map while calculating potential sequences of engagement, adjustments to his Alps, and contingencies across every hidden path, ridge, and shadow, ensuring that the battlefield itself bends to his anticipation, that control is absolute, and that the first movement of consequence will emerge entirely from his foresight rather than reaction. Orhan breathes slowly, centering mind and body, feeling the vibration of the earth beneath his boots, the temperature of the wind, the flow of dust, and the shift of shadows, and he integrates these sensory variables into a lattice of awareness and strategy, coordinating every motion of his Alps with micro-adjustments to stance, posture, and perception, transforming patience into readiness, observation into anticipation, and awareness into dominance, creating a system in which the plateau, the enemy, and his men operate under a single orchestrated command that anticipates and controls all sequences of action. He steps forward deliberately, the soles of his boots pressing lightly into the plateau's uneven surface, reading every vibration, fluctuation, and irregularity, translating these subtle environmental cues into probabilities and sequences, while his Alps move imperceptibly, forming a living network of coverage, mirroring his awareness, reinforcing arcs of anticipation, and ensuring that the enemy's attempts to mislead, manipulate, or provoke are rendered ineffective before they can materialize, demonstrating that command belongs not to force alone, but to perception, timing, and the ability to act decisively from preparation rather than reaction. The mastermind speaks softly, measured, deliberate, each word resonating across the plateau, loaded with intention and weight. Observation, patience, and endurance brought you here, but true mastery is revealed only when choice, initiative, and action align with foresight. Will you define the battlefield, impose your will, and shape outcomes, or will hesitation allow chaos and circumstance to determine events? Orhan responds, voice calm, unwavering, eyes fixed. Control is earned not by circumstance, but by awareness, preparation, and the courage to act decisively at the precise moment, transforming observation, patience, and foresight into execution that leaves nothing to chance. Wind shifts suddenly, twisting around jagged rocks and cliffs, carrying faint whispers of movement and signals across the plateau, and Orhan's gaze tracks every subtle displacement, integrating dust trails, glints of metal, and movements into a dynamic mental map, while his Alps silently reposition, covering every angle, every potential threat, every hidden path, ensuring that the battlefield itself becomes an instrument of strategy, readiness, and dominance, converting patience, awareness, and observation into the control of outcome before the first decisive action is demanded. A distant sound, a twig snapping, faint and precise, registers instantly in Orhan's mind, and he projects dozens of potential outcomes, adjusting micro-movements, posture, and positioning, integrating sequences of attack, defense, and countermeasure into a living strategy, while his Alps shift seamlessly, reinforcing arcs of observation, coverage, and engagement, demonstrating that mastery is not reaction, but anticipation, preparation, and decisive execution that converts every variable of terrain, wind, shadow, and movement into advantage, ensuring that he will dictate the first act of engagement rather than respond to it. Orhan's eyes sweep the plateau, noting every shadow, fissure, ridge, and subtle contour, integrating each environmental variable with the positions of his Alps, predicting potential ambushes, traps, and deceptive maneuvers, and preparing sequences of response that extend beyond sight and sound, converting patience, observation, and awareness into a lattice of control that dominates both terrain and enemy before any engagement, ensuring that when the decisive moment comes, Every action flows from calculation, precision, and foresight rather than impulse, chance, or reaction. The mastermind inclines slightly, acknowledging Orhan's command of the terrain and awareness, while allowing subtle cues to guide Orhan toward the next phase of engagement, revealing through posture, gestures, and movement that the true test is not endurance, observation, or patience, but the ability to transform preparation into decisive action, shaping the battlefield, timing, and sequence of events to impose will, demonstrating that victory belongs not to force or numbers alone, but to those who convert anticipation, clarity, and foresight into unshakable execution. Orhan Bey adjusts stance imperceptibly, feeling the subtle vibrations of the earth beneath him, noting the temperature, wind direction, and faint disturbances in dust and foliage, each microsignal integrated seamlessly into a dynamic mental map that spans the entire plateau, while his Alps fan out into perfect alignment, reinforcing arcs of observation, coverage, and readiness, ensuring that no movement, no sound, and no shadow can escape his awareness, transforming patience, observation, and awareness into dominance over terrain, enemy, and timing before a single action occurs. A faint shimmer of movement along a distant ridge signals potential scouts or traps, and Orhan's gaze locks instantly, tracking trajectory, rhythm, and alignment with precise calculation, while dozens of contingencies form in his mind simultaneously, integrating terrain, wind, shadow, and timing, signaling his Alps imperceptibly to cover every approach, establishing a lattice of control that converts anticipation into dominance, ensuring that the first act of engagement emerges entirely from preparation, awareness, and foresight, rather than from reaction, hesitation, or chance. The mastermind steps forward, cloak brushing lightly over rocks, posture fluid and deliberate, and Orhan observes every micromotion, the tilt of the head, weight distribution, rhythm of movement, integrating them into sequences of prediction, countermeasure, and timing, while his Alps adjust silently, positioning themselves across angles of potential attack, forming an interconnected network of anticipation, coverage, and dominance that ensures control of every pathway, every approach, every ridge, leaving no element of chance to disrupt the sequences he has already calculated. Orhan speaks softly, deliberately, projecting authority that resonates without breaking the tension. Every shadow, ridge, fissure, and fold of this plateau is accounted for. Every movement, intention, and microaction is anticipated. Patience, observation, and awareness are active instruments, transforming preparation into precision, anticipation into execution, and foresight into dominance, allowing me to define the battlefield, impose will, and convert every variable into advantage before engagement, ensuring that neither hesitation nor impulse dictates outcome, but only deliberate, calculated action executed at the precise moment. Wind twists sharply through narrow fissures, carrying whispers of distant movement, subtle shifts of dust, and faint glints of sunlight reflecting off metal, and Orhan's eyes follow every microsignal, integrating each into a comprehensive mental map while signaling his Alps imperceptibly, extending awareness across every angle, every hidden path, every approach, converting terrain into a strategic instrument and patience into a weapon of anticipation, ensuring that every variable is under observation and ready to be dominated when the decisive moment arrives. A distant twig snaps sharply, and Orhan instantly projects dozens of potential outcomes, adjusting micro-movements, posture, and positioning while integrating sequences of attack, defense, and countermeasure into his living strategy, and his Alps move seamlessly in perfect synchronization, reinforcing coverage, observation, and anticipation, demonstrating that true mastery is not in reaction, but in foresight, preparation, and decisive execution, converting every variable of terrain, enemy, and timing into advantage and ensuring that the first movement of consequence will be dictated entirely by him. The mastermind inclines slightly, acknowledging Orhan's awareness and command, while subtly guiding him toward the next stage of engagement, showing through micro-gestures, posture, and movement that the real test is not endurance, observation, or patience, but the ability to convert preparation into decisive action, shaping the battlefield, timing, and sequences of events to impose will, proving that victory belongs not to force or numbers, but to those who transform foresight, clarity, and anticipation into flawless execution that cannot be disrupted. Orhan breathes slowly, centering mind, body, and awareness, feeling the subtle vibrations, wind currents, temperature shifts, and shadow movements, integrating them into a lattice of observation and anticipation that spans the plateau, while his Alps fan out imperceptibly, reinforcing arcs of coverage, sequence control, and readiness, converting patience into readiness, observation into anticipation, and awareness into dominance, creating a network of command in which every microvariable, movement, and signal is accounted for before any decisive action occurs. A glint of sunlight catches a distant cliff, revealing a faint silhouette, a scout or trap perhaps, and Orhan calculates multiple sequences of engagement, adjusting posture, stance, and micro-movements, while his Alps position themselves seamlessly across coverage lines, establishing dominance across all axes of approach, converting observation into preemptive control, patience into readiness, and awareness into unshakable command of the battlefield, ensuring that when the decisive moment arrives, every action flows from preparation and foresight rather than reaction or impulse. The plateau grows darker as the sun dips lower, shadows elongating and merging, wind twisting unpredictably, dust swirling across ridges, and Orhan's gaze sweeps the terrain, integrating every microsignal, every environmental variable, every potential threat into a dynamic living map, while his Alps extend silently into the terrain, reinforcing observation, coverage, and control, transforming the battlefield into an extension of his mind, body, and command, and preparing every variable to respond to his intent with precision, clarity, and decisive execution when the first moment of engagement demands action. The wind rises across the plateau, carrying a faint metallic scent of distant steel and the dust of previous skirmishes, while Orhan Bey scans the horizon with eyes that pierce the folds of terrain like a hawk, sensing movement where none seems visible, calculating the trajectory of every shadow and anticipating the subtle shifts in the enemy's strategy before a single arrow is drawn, knowing that the true battle has moved from the open fields into the mind, where patience, foresight, and precision decide survival. From the ridge above, faint silhouettes emerge, scouts or spies he cannot tell at first, but the way they move, synchronized, cautious, and measured, speaks of a commander orchestrating every step. Orhan signals subtly with his hand, his Alps fan out without sound, melting into the landscape, positioning themselves to cover every approach, every potential trap, every line of attack, demonstrating a level of control that makes the surrounding wilderness an extension of his will, where even silence carries weight and direction. A sudden movement catches his eye, an almost imperceptible shift in the terrain, a glint of sunlight along a rock edge, and Orhan realizes the enemy has anticipated his approach, trying to manipulate the environment, turn every shadow against him, and bait a reaction. He does not flinch. Instead, he adjusts his mind, layering possibilities upon probabilities, integrating every variable into a single living map of the battlefield, where his patience is not hesitation but preparation, and his foresight shapes the rhythm of what is to come. He advances slowly, every step deliberate, every breath measured, knowing that the moment of confrontation is inevitable, yet must be earned, must be dictated. The enemy's intention is clear now, a trap designed to test both courage and calculation. Orhan Bey moves not just to survive, but to control, to define the terms of engagement, to transform the battlefield into a stage where every choice, every gesture, every movement belongs to him, and where hesitation can mean death. From the distant ridge, a figure descends, this time clearly the mastermind himself, draped in silence and calm, walking as if the world moves beneath his command. Orhan meets the gaze of the figure and feels the weight of intellect, strategy, and experience concentrated into one person. Words are not exchanged immediately, none are needed. The tension stretches, heavy, deliberate, and electric, each observing the other, testing patience, control, and awareness, recognizing that the clash before them is not of swords, but of mind, will, and anticipation. Finally, the figure speaks. You have endured much to reach this point. Every step, every shadow, every hesitation has been calculated, observed, and responded to. Yet endurance is not victory, observation is not mastery. Are you ready to define what comes next? Orhan Bey responds, voice steady, eyes unwavering. I have watched, I have learned, I have endured. I see the designs, the traps, the signals. And when the moment demands, I will act with precision, intent, and clarity, shaping the outcome rather than being shaped by it. The wind carries the faintest hint of tension, moving through the rocks, the trees, the dust, wrapping the battlefield in an almost imperceptible current of anticipation, while Orhan's Alps position themselves like shadows that cannot be pinned down, ready for any signal, any command, any act. The mastermind inclines, acknowledging the control without yielding, and gestures subtly toward the terrain, revealing the web of traps, ambushes, and prepared positions, showing that every previous test was only preparation for this confrontation, a battle of insight, patience, and decisive action. Orhan Bey studies the revealed terrain, noting every slope, every shadow, every possible approach, every unseen danger. His mind catalogs each element, layering strategies upon strategies, preparing for contingencies while maintaining complete awareness. He understands now that this confrontation is not about brute force, but about anticipation, patience, and precision, and that the victory will belong to the one who can control not only men and terrain, but timing, perception, and the very flow of events, bending them to their will before the enemy can react. The mastermind steps back, allowing the plateau to stretch fully before them, exposing every hidden path, every subtle hazard, every calculated opportunity. Orhan feels the weight of choice press upon him, not just survival, but the ability to act decisively, to impose strategy upon chaos, to transform observation into mastery. Every decision he makes now will ripple through the events to come, defining not just the immediate battle, but the larger course of the war itself. Orhan Bey breathes slowly, measuring each breath as if it were part of the strategy itself. Every micro-movement is deliberate. Every glance, every tilt of the head, every shift in posture communicates awareness, control, and intent. He knows the next step is critical, not just for himself, but for the men who follow, for the strategy that has been prepared for months, for the future he intends to shape. In this quiet before the storm, he is fully present, fully aware, and ready. The sun dips lower, casting long, jagged shadows across the plateau, shadows that seem almost alive, shifting with the wind and echoing the tension between Orhan Bey and the mastermind, each one measuring the other's intent, each aware that the first movement could determine the course of the confrontation. And yet neither acts hastily, for patience is now as much a weapon as any sword, and awareness is a shield that protects as much as it anticipates, mapping the invisible threads of strategy and timing. Orhan steps forward, carefully placing each foot along the uneven terrain, feeling the subtle vibrations of the ground beneath him, noting how each ridge might conceal a threat, each fold of the plateau could hide an ambush, each flicker of wind could carry a signal, and yet he does not tense, does not flinch, does not react impulsively, for he knows that true mastery comes from patience, observation, and the ability to see through chaos before it manifests, allowing him to define the battlefield before any battle begins. The mastermind finally moves, his cloak brushing faintly against the rocks, a motion so controlled that it could almost be mistaken for part of the environment itself. Yet Orhan's eyes track it with precision, recognizing every subtle cue, every imperceptible shift of weight, every micro-adjustment of posture, and he integrates this information immediately into his mental map, calculating dozens of potential sequences in the time it takes for a single heartbeat. Understanding fully that this confrontation is a test of foresight as much as skill. A distant bird cries and the sound fractures the tension, but even this small disturbance is absorbed into Orhan's awareness, his gaze sweeping the plateau, noting the smallest dust eddies, the faintest glimmers of metal, the direction of the wind, the position of every shadow, while his alps shift imperceptibly to mirror his movements, extending his awareness across the plateau like invisible extensions of his own senses, preparing to respond instantly to any threat, any signal, any unfolding sequence. Orhan's hand rests lightly on the hilt of his sword, not as a sign of aggression, but as a measure of readiness, a symbol of control over self and circumstance, a reminder to his mind and body that the moment of action will be determined by choice and clarity rather than reaction or impulse, and that every step he takes now is part of a larger strategy that encompasses not only this confrontation but the entire campaign that lies ahead, where foresight and patience will dictate the fate of men and lands alike. The mastermind speaks, his voice carrying softly across the plateau, deliberate, measured, yet heavy with meaning. You have endured the trials, navigated the traps, anticipated movements that even the unseen could not reveal. But now the test is no longer about endurance, observation, or survival. It is about initiative, about the courage to act decisively, about shaping the outcome before the outcome can shape you. Will you take control, or will you allow circumstance to dictate your steps? Orhan Bey does not speak immediately, letting the words hang in the wind, letting the gravity of the plateau, the tension of the confrontation, and the weight of consequence settle around them, absorbing every detail, every nuance, every signal before replying in a voice calm yet resonant. Control is not given by circumstance. Mastery is not earned through hesitation. Every movement I make, every decision I choose, every breath I take is deliberate, integrated with observation, patience, and awareness. When action is required, it will flow with precision and clarity, leaving nothing to chance. The plateau stretches before them, jagged cliffs framing the edges, subtle rises concealing traps, faint patterns etched into the rocks marking paths and signals, and Orhan's eyes sweep it all, cataloging the details in a methodical mental map that extends beyond the visible, beyond the immediate, into possibilities, contingencies, and potential outcomes, demonstrating that true command is not only in action but in complete awareness, in shaping the battlefield before any confrontation begins. The mastermind inclines slightly, acknowledging Orhan's resolve without yielding, and gestures subtly toward the terrain, revealing the full scope of hidden dangers, prepared positions, and carefully placed pathways, showing that every previous test, every maneuver, every trap was merely preparation for this moment, a demonstration of control, foresight, and strategy, and Orhan Bey nods imperceptibly, integrating the design into his plan. Understanding fully that victory will belong not to the strongest, but to the one who shapes the sequence of events with clarity and intent. Orhan breathes deeply, centering himself, aligning mind, body, and environment, feeling the rhythm of wind, dust, and shadow, sensing the subtle currents of energy that flow through the plateau, noting the smallest imperfections in the ground, the faintest glimmers of reflected light, the position of his men, and the flow of potential attack or ambush, knowing that the moment of confrontation will arrive when it must, and that his preparation, awareness, and patience will define the outcome in ways that force alone cannot. The wind whistles through the ridges, carrying the faint scent of iron, dust, and distant fires, and Orhan Bey shifts his weight subtly, feeling the vibrations of the earth beneath his feet, reading the terrain like a living map, calculating every potential ambush, every hidden trap, every subtle shift that might indicate movement, knowing that the enemy has already anticipated certain patterns, yet confident that foresight, patience, and awareness will allow him to turn the battlefield itself into an instrument of control, leaving nothing to chance or impulse. From the higher cliffs, a movement flares, a flash of fabric, a shimmer of metal, and Orhan's gaze locks instantly, tracking the figure with unerring precision, integrating the new variable into his mental map, recalculating sequences, anticipating responses, and preparing contingencies, while his Alps fan out, silently covering approaches, extending his awareness, and ensuring that any attempt to ambush, deceive, or mislead is met with immediate, coordinated, and deliberate countermeasures. Demonstrating that true command flows through mind, men, and environment as a single orchestrated system. Orhan steps forward deliberately, each footfall measured, controlled, unhurried, signaling readiness and awareness rather than aggression. While his eyes sweep the plateau, noting subtle shifts in dust, the bending of grass, the patterns of shadows, integrating each element into a complete sequence of probabilities, preparing to act at the precise moment when decision and opportunity converge, ensuring that every potential outcome has already been accounted for, every misstep anticipated, and every reaction preemptively countered before it can even begin. The mastermind lowers his gaze slightly, acknowledging Orhan's awareness, and then gestures imperceptibly toward the valley ahead, revealing a network of hidden paths, shallow depressions, and concealed hazards, each designed to force hesitation, misstep, or error, yet Orhan does not falter. Instead, he absorbs the new information, mapping each subtle ridge and contour, predicting enemy response, aligning his Alps silently, and preparing to move with the precision of a single, coordinated entity that has transformed patience, observation, and awareness into unshakable command over every element of the environment. A sudden shift in wind carries faint sounds, footsteps, whispers, the snapping of a twig, and Orhan's gaze narrows, tracing each noise to its source, analyzing rhythm, distance, and potential intent, while his mind calculates dozens of sequences at once, anticipating movement and opportunity, signaling his Alps through imperceptible gestures, positioning them to dominate every approach, ensuring that the terrain, the enemy, and the natural elements are all part of a single flow under his control. A flow designed to convert observation into decisive action without hesitation or error. Orhan's voice breaks the tension softly, deliberate, carrying authority yet measured. The moment of decision will not be forced by circumstance. It will be seized through preparation, observation, and control, with every action flowing from awareness rather than impulse, shaping the battlefield and outcome according to design rather than reaction. And every move I make will define not only this confrontation but the course of the campaign itself, ensuring that opportunity is claimed, mistakes are anticipated, and victory is earned through strategy and foresight rather than force alone. The mastermind inclines slightly, acknowledging the statement without conceding dominance, and steps back into the shadows, revealing that the true challenge lies not in immediate engagement, but in the orchestration of anticipation, the management of timing, and the ability to convert patience and observation into action at precisely the moment when opportunity and consequence align. While Orhan Bey studies the revealed plateau, absorbing every detail, integrating every ridge, path, and shadow into a comprehensive mental map that will guide both him and his men to absolute readiness. Orhan tilts his head, assessing every slope, fissure, and ridge, feeling the subtle vibrations of the earth beneath his boots, noting how wind patterns shift across rocks, how dust trails reveal unseen movement, how light and shadow play across contours, and he calculates with precision where each potential threat, trap, or ambush could lie, preparing contingencies that span dozens of sequences while his Alps silently adjust to maintain coverage, positioning, and synchronization, converting the terrain itself into a system that reinforces his control, patience, and calculated readiness. The sun dips lower, brushing the cliffs with a dim golden light, elongating shadows that stretch like fingers across the plateau, and Orhan's gaze follows each one, integrating them into his awareness, recognizing where movement could be concealed, where deception might be attempted, and how his own presence can shape the enemy's perception, bending the flow of events toward his favor, and ensuring that when the moment of engagement comes, he will act with clarity, precision, and intent that cannot be anticipated or disrupted by anyone else. A faint hiss of wind carries the whispers of strategy and threat, as if the plateau itself is alive, and Orhan breathes slowly, aligning every thought, movement, and calculation with the pulse of the land, the rhythm of his men, and the imperceptible signals of the enemy, understanding that leadership is not in reaction but in defining the terms of engagement, and that victory belongs to the one who can anticipate, adapt, and execute with absolute control over timing, sequence, and consequence, shaping the battlefield before it can shape him. The plateau stretches before Orhan Bey like a living puzzle, every ridge, dip, shadow, and fissure revealing the silent intent of those who laid it, and his mind moves through it with relentless precision, integrating every subtle detail into a living map of probability, while his Alps fan out into the environment like extensions of his own awareness, each step, each breath, each glance reinforcing the lattice of control that allows him to anticipate threats, shape engagement, and convert observation and patience into decisive, unstoppable action when the moment demands it. Above, the cliffs seem to lean closer, casting shadows that lengthen with every passing second, and Orhan calculates how each flicker of sunlight could reveal movement, how each pattern of rock could conceal danger, how every whisper of wind could carry signals or traps, while his gaze traces the smallest ripples in dust and grass, registering movement too slight for any ordinary observer, understanding that the battlefield is now a canvas for intellect, strategy, and precision rather than brute force, where victory will flow from anticipation, foresight, and control rather than impulsive action. He steps forward, the soles of his boots pressing lightly into the earth, feeling subtle shifts in pressure, temperature, and vibration, and his mind expands outward, integrating each variable into a lattice of cause and effect that spans the plateau, the cliffs, and the distant ridges, predicting where the enemy could strike, where ambushes could be laid, and how every movement could trigger a chain reaction, while his Alps adjust imperceptibly, covering every potential angle, ensuring that when the first signal to act arrives, it will be met with flawless coordination and absolute authority. A distant movement flashes against the jagged rocks, a shimmer of fabric, a glint of metal, and Orhan's gaze fixes instantly, registering the presence while simultaneously projecting dozens of possible outcomes, micro-adjusting posture, stance, and even breathing rhythm, and his Alps shift like shadows into positions of silent dominance, reinforcing arcs of coverage, mirroring his awareness, preparing to act not only against visible threats but against unseen possibilities, demonstrating that true command flows through mind, men, and environment as a single, cohesive system that bends the battlefield to his intent before any action occurs. The mastermind steps forward, his movement deliberate, measured, almost imperceptible, like a shadow sliding over the landscape, and Orhan observes every detail, the tilt of the head, the weight distribution, the rhythm of breathing, the subtle gestures that convey intention, and he integrates all into the strategic map forming in his mind, predicting responses, assessing potential traps, planning contingencies, and calculating exactly when, where, and how the first decisive engagement will occur. Knowing that patience, observation, and anticipation are the ultimate weapons in a battle of intellect and foresight, Orhan speaks, voice calm, deliberate, resonant across the plateau without breaking the silence, projecting authority that ripples subtly through the environment and touches every shadow. Every movement, every plan, every potential attack is visible to me because I have watched, calculated, and understood. I do not act without reason, but when the moment demands, I will shape the battlefield, define the terms, and convert observation into precision that leaves nothing to chance, hesitation, or error, and no adversary will disrupt the sequence I have already mapped in my mind. The air seems to still, holding the weight of their presence like an invisible pressure, and Orhan's gaze sweeps every ridge, fissure, and fold of the plateau, noting where light glances, where shadows deepen, how the wind twists around rocks, and every subtle environmental variable becomes part of his strategic calculus, integrated with the positions of his Alps, the potential lines of enemy movement, and the anticipated sequence of confrontation, ensuring that when action is required, it flows not from impulse, but from preparation, calculation, and unshakable clarity. A sudden rustle in the distant brush draws his attention, and his mind calculates dozens of possible threats, predicting timing, intent, and response while his Alps adjust silently, spreading through the terrain like extensions of his perception, covering every approach, every hidden path, every gap, reinforcing the lattice of control, demonstrating that command is not held by force alone, but by awareness, patience, anticipation, and the ability to act decisively when the exact moment for action arrives, bending chaos into order before any engagement begins. The mastermind tilts his head, studying Orhan with the quiet confidence of one who knows the battlefield intimately, and speaks. You have navigated traps, endured tests, and maintained composure under observation, yet this is no longer about patience alone. The decisive moment approaches, and mastery is proven not by endurance, but by the courage to impose your will, shape outcomes, and act before chaos dictates events. Orhan nods slightly, every micro-expression precise, signaling comprehension, readiness, and authority, aware that timing is as crucial as strategy, and that hesitation now could compromise the entire sequence of his plan. Orhan shifts forward again, feeling the earth, the wind, the subtle vibrations, the faintest changes in temperature and pressure, integrating them into a multidimensional map of potential sequences, movements, and outcomes, while the Alps fan out with perfect synchronization, covering all angles, adapting silently to every variation, reinforcing the network of observation, anticipation, and readiness, creating a system in which the plateau itself seems to bend to his awareness. A dynamic extension of his control, a living instrument of strategy prepared to convert observation into decisive action. The light fades further, turning the cliffs into jagged silhouettes, elongating shadows that ripple across the plateau like flowing currents, and Orhan's eyes follow each, integrating their movement into his awareness, anticipating how the enemy might use darkness and perception to mislead, deceive, or ambush, and he prepares sequences of response, adjustments, and maneuvers that will flow like a river into decisive engagement, ensuring that patience and foresight are transformed into precise, unerring control of every variable on the battlefield before any movement of consequence occurs. Orhan pauses in the center of the chamber, every muscle poised, every breath synchronized with the subtle hum of the stone beneath him, while his alps form invisible arcs of coverage, creating a lattice of readiness that merges seamlessly with the environment, demonstrating that awareness has become command, and every micro-movement, every flicker of shadow, and every faint vibration has already been calculated, anticipated, and integrated into a perfect system of controlled action. The first man tilts his head, acknowledging Orhan's flawless integration of space, men, and sequence, and speaks softly, deliberate. You can anticipate every movement while maintaining absolute composure. You can translate observation into total control. Will you act decisively when the opportunity arises? Orhan replies calmly, precise, unwavering. Observation has built clarity. Patience has structured readiness. Awareness has integrated every sequence. When action becomes necessary, it will be precise, deliberate, and unstoppable, flowing from anticipation rather than impulse. A faint pulse vibrates through the chamber floor, dust spiraling along the glowing etched lines, revealing hidden pathways, subtle hazards, and intersections, and Orhan's gaze sweeps over each, integrating them into a complete mental map, predicting every potential sequence of movement while his alps adjust imperceptibly, reinforcing coverage, positioning, and alignment, demonstrating that command now flows invisibly from Orhan's awareness through environment and men alike, forming a dynamic system of anticipation and control, ready for flawless execution. The second figure steps forward cautiously, testing timing, patience, and composure, and Orhan integrates the motion instantly, micro-adjusting stance, weight, and balance while signaling imperceptibly to his alps to maintain arcs of coverage, forming a living lattice of readiness, demonstrating that mastery is anticipation, integration, and preparation rather than reaction, and that every potential threat or opportunity has already been accounted for in his flowing orchestration of command, allowing him to dictate the pace of every interaction flawlessly. Orhan steps deliberately toward the center, eyes sweeping every figure, shadow, alignment, and vibration, integrating all into a flowing mental map, predicting sequences, anticipating responses, while his alps adjust seamlessly to maintain arcs of readiness and positioning, demonstrating that awareness, patience, and observation have evolved into total command, allowing every action, movement, and breath to flow from his deliberate, calculated, and unstoppable will without hesitation, error, or distraction, fully prepared for decisive execution. The first man inclines subtly, recognizing Orhan's flawless synchronization with his alps, and speaks softly. Observation and patience have been mastered, but mastery is the ability to act decisively when readiness is absolute. Are you prepared? Orhan responds calmly, unwavering. Observation creates clarity. Patience structures readiness. Awareness integrates sequences. When the moment demands action, it will be precise, deliberate, and unstoppable, executed entirely on my terms, without hesitation or error, flowing from anticipation and understanding rather than impulse. Another figure emerges from a shadowed alcove, testing Orhan's awareness, timing, and composure, and he integrates the presence seamlessly, micro-adjusting posture, stance, and weight while signaling imperceptibly to his alps to maintain coverage, alignment, and readiness, demonstrating that mastery is observation, integration, and anticipation, and that every potential threat, movement, and opportunity has already been calculated, allowing him to dictate the sequence and flow of every interaction within the chamber with absolute precision and authority. The glowing lines pulse faintly, dust spiraling along etched patterns, highlighting hidden pathways, hazards, and intersections, and Orhan's gaze sweeps each with precision, integrating sequences, predicting outcomes, and forming a complete strategic map while his alps adjust imperceptibly, reinforcing arcs of coverage and alignment, demonstrating that control now extends through environment, men, and sequences as a single, unified system, poised to convert observation and patience into decisive action at exactly the right moment, leaving nothing to chance. Orhan breathes slowly, synchronizing his rhythm with the subtle hum of the chamber, stepping slightly forward, narrowing the distance between himself and the first man, projecting calm authority while fully aware of every shadow, vibration, and microshift in alignment, demonstrating that mastery is not reaction but integration and anticipation, allowing him to command environment, men, and timing simultaneously, preparing to transform observation and patience into perfect execution when required, leaving no variable unaccounted for. The first man inclines slightly, nodding the micro-adjustments of Orhan's stance, the coordination of the alps, and the flow of awareness into the environment, speaking softly. Few can anticipate every movement while maintaining composure. Few can integrate observation, patience, and environment into flawless command. Will you act decisively? Orhan replies quietly, deliberate. Observation creates clarity. Patience ensures readiness. Awareness integrates sequences. When action is required, it will be precise, deliberate, and unstoppable, flowing from preparation and strategy rather than impulse or fear. A faint vibration pulses beneath the chamber floor, dust spiraling along glowing lines, revealing previously hidden intersections, pathways, and hazards, and Orhan's gaze sweeps across every pattern, predicting sequences, integrating movements, and forming a complete strategy while his alps adjust imperceptibly, reinforcing arcs of coverage and positioning, demonstrating that control now flows through mind, men, and environment as a single coordinated system. Prepared for flawless execution at exactly the right moment, leaving no opportunity uncalculated. Orhan shifts slightly, every movement precise, weight perfectly balanced, eyes sweeping every corner, every shadow, every subtle glint along the stone walls, integrating vibrations from the floor, faint dust patterns, and the positions of all figures, while his alps adjust invisibly, forming arcs of coverage and alignment that demonstrate his awareness has transformed into total command, and that every micro-movement, every whisper of motion, and every subtle shift in the environment has already been calculated and accounted for with flawless precision. The first man tilts his head subtly, acknowledging Orhan's complete integration of space, men, and timing, and speaks quietly, deliberate. If you can anticipate every motion while maintaining absolute composure, if you can integrate patience, observation, and environment into seamless command, will you act decisively when the moment arrives? Orhan responds calmly, precise, unwavering. Observation creates clarity, patience structures readiness, awareness integrates every sequence. When action becomes necessary, it will be exact, deliberate, and unstoppable, flowing from strategy rather than impulse. A faint pulse runs through the chamber floor, dust spiraling along the glowing etched lines, revealing hidden pathways, subtle hazards, and intersections, and Orhan's gaze sweeps over each with precision, integrating every element into a cohesive mental map, predicting every potential sequence while his alps microadjust imperceptibly, reinforcing arcs of coverage and readiness, demonstrating that command now flows invisibly through mind, men, an environment as one dynamic system poised for flawless execution at precisely the right moment. The second figure moves forward cautiously, testing timing, patience, and composure, and Orhan integrates the motion immediately, micro-adjusting stance, posture, and weight, while signaling imperceptibly to his alps to maintain alignment and coverage, reinforcing a living lattice of readiness, demonstrating that mastery is anticipation and integration rather than reaction, and that every potential threat or opportunity has already been accounted for, allowing him to dictate the sequence and pace of every interaction flawlessly. Orhan steps deliberately toward the center of the chamber, eyes sweeping every figure, shadow, alignment, and vibration, integrating all into a flowing mental map, anticipating every sequence, predicting every response, while his alps adjust seamlessly to maintain arcs of coverage, positioning, and readiness, demonstrating that awareness, patience, and observation have evolved into total command, allowing every action, movement, and breath to flow from his deliberate, calculated, an unstoppable will without hesitation, error, or distraction, fully prepared for decisive execution. The first man inclines subtly, recognizing Orhan's perfect synchronization with his alps, and speaks softly. Observation and patience have been mastered, but mastery requires the ability to act decisively when all variables are integrated and readiness is absolute. Are you prepared? Orhan responds calmly, unwavering. Observation has created clarity. Patience has structured readiness. Awareness has integrated sequences. When the moment demands action, it will be precise, deliberate, and unstoppable, executed entirely on my terms, without hesitation, fully controlled and intentional. Another figure emerges from a shadowed corner, testing Orhan's awareness, timing, and composure, and Orhan integrates the presence seamlessly, micro-adjusting stance, posture, and weight while signaling imperceptibly to his alps to maintain coverage, alignment, and readiness, demonstrating that mastery is observation, integration, and anticipation, and that every potential threat, movement, and opportunity has already been accounted for, allowing him to dictate the flow and sequence of every interaction in the chamber with complete authority and precision. The glowing etched lines pulse faintly, dust spiraling along patterns, highlighting hidden pathways, hazards, and intersections, and Orhan's gaze traces each with precision, integrating sequences, predicting outcomes, and forming a complete strategic map while his alps microadjust, reinforcing arcs of coverage, positioning, and synchronization, demonstrating that control now extends through environment, men, and sequence as a single unified system poised to convert observation and patience into decisive action at exactly the right moment, leaving no variable unaccounted for. Orhan breathes slowly, syncing with the subtle vibrations of the chamber, stepping slightly forward, narrowing the distance between himself and the first man, projecting calm authority while fully aware of every shadow, micro-vibration, and subtle shift in alignment, demonstrating that mastery is anticipation and precise integration, allowing him to command environment, men, and timing simultaneously, preparing to transform observation and patience into perfect, flawless execution when required, leaving no detail unobserved or unaccounted for in the unfolding sequence of action. The first man inclines slightly, nodding the micro-adjustments of Orhan's stance, the coordination of the Alps and the flow of awareness into the environment, speaking softly. Few can anticipate every movement while maintaining composure. Few can integrate observation, patience, and environment into flawless command. Will you act decisively? Orhan replies quietly, deliberate. Observation creates clarity. Patience ensures readiness. Awareness integrates sequences. When action is required, it will be precise, deliberate, and unstoppable, flowing from preparation, anticipation, and understanding rather than fear or impulse. A faint vibration pulses beneath the chamber floor, dust spiraling along glowing etched lines, revealing hidden intersections, pathways, and hazards, and Orhan's gaze sweeps across every pattern, predicting sequences, integrating movements, and forming a complete strategy while his Alps adjust imperceptibly, reinforcing arcs of coverage, demonstrating that control now flows through mind, men, and environment as a single coordinated system. Prepared for flawless execution at exactly the right moment, leaving nothing unaccounted for, nothing overlooked, and nothing to chance. Another figure steps from the shadows, testing Orhan's timing, awareness, and composure, and he integrates the motion immediately, micro-adjusting stance, posture, and weight while signaling imperceptibly to his Alps to maintain alignment, coverage, and readiness, demonstrating that mastery is not reaction but anticipation, observation, and integration, and that every potential threat, movement, or opportunity has already been calculated, allowing him to dictate every interaction within the chamber with absolute precision, authority, and control over space and sequence. Orhan steps forward deliberately, eyes sweeping every figure, shadow, alignment, and faint vibration, integrating all into a cohesive mental map of sequences, predicting every response while his Alps microadjust to maintain arcs of coverage, readiness, and positioning, demonstrating that awareness, patience, and observation have merged into total command, allowing every action, movement, and breath to flow from his deliberate, calculated, and unstoppable will. Preparing the chamber for decisive execution at the precise, preordained moment. Orhan tilts slightly, adjusting posture with imperceptible precision, while his eyes trace the faint dust spirals along the glowing etched patterns, reading them as a map of hidden threats, silent signals, and unseen alignments, integrating every detail into a living strategy, while his Alps shift imperceptibly to cover each approach, forming a lattice of control that demonstrates mastery not through brute force, but through anticipation, foresight, and seamless synchronization with environment, men, and every variable in play. The first man inclines, his voice low, deliberate. Observation, patience, and awareness are impressive, but mastery is measured by action, not endurance. Can you act decisively while every element is aligned against you? Orhan responds calmly, unwavering. Observation has revealed clarity. Patience ensures readiness. Awareness integrates every potential sequence. When action is required, it will be deliberate, precise, unstoppable, and executed entirely according to strategy, timing, and calculated intent, leaving no room for error, hesitation, or distraction. A faint vibration flows through the chamber floor, dust spiraling along the etched patterns, revealing hidden intersections, unseen hazards, and potential pathways, and Orhan's gaze sweeps over each element, integrating sequences, predicting responses, and forming a complete mental map, while his Alps adjust imperceptibly, reinforcing coverage, arcs of defense, and readiness, demonstrating that command now flows through him, through his men, and into the environment itself as a single coordinated system, poised to execute flawlessly when the precise moment arrives. Another figure steps from the shadows, testing timing, composure, and observation, and Orhan integrates the movement immediately, micro-adjusting stance, posture, and weight while signaling imperceptibly to his Alps to maintain coverage, positioning, and alignment, demonstrating that mastery is anticipation, integration, and preparation rather than reaction, and that every potential threat, movement, or opportunity has already been accounted for in his flowing orchestration of command, allowing him to dictate the pace and sequence of every interaction flawlessly. Orhan steps forward deliberately, eyes sweeping every figure, shadow, alignment, and faint vibration, integrating all into a flowing mental map of strategy, anticipating every sequence, predicting every response, while his Alps adjust seamlessly to maintain arcs of coverage, positioning, and readiness, demonstrating that awareness, patience, and observation have evolved into total command, allowing every action, movement, and breath to flow from his deliberate, calculated, an unstoppable will without hesitation, error, or distraction, fully prepared for decisive execution at the exact moment. The first man inclines subtly, acknowledging Orhan's perfect synchronization with his Alps, and speaks softly. Few can anticipate every variable while maintaining composure. Few can integrate observation, patience, and environment into flawless command. Will you act decisively? Orhan replies quietly, deliberate. Observation creates clarity. Patience structures readiness. Awareness integrates sequences. When action becomes necessary, it will be precise, deliberate, and unstoppable, flowing from anticipation and strategy rather than fear, impulse, or distraction, executed entirely on my terms. Glowing etch lines pulse faintly, dust spiraling along intersections, highlighting hidden pathways, hazards, and alignments, and Orhan traces each with exacting precision, integrating sequences, predicting outcomes, and forming a complete strategic map while his Alps adjust imperceptibly, reinforcing arcs of coverage, positioning, and synchronization, demonstrating that command now extends through men, environment, and sequence as a single unified system, prepared to convert observation, patience, and awareness into flawless execution at the precise moment without hesitation. Orhan breathes slowly, syncing his rhythm with the subtle hum of the chamber, stepping slightly forward, narrowing the distance between himself and the first man, projecting calm authority while maintaining full awareness of every shadow, vibration, and microshift in alignment, demonstrating that mastery is anticipation and precise integration, allowing him to command environment, men, and timing simultaneously, preparing to transform observation and patience into perfect, decisive execution, leaving no detail unobserved or unaccounted for, and no opportunity for miscalculation. The first man inclines, nodding the micro-adjustments of Orhan's stance, the coordination of the Alps, and the flow of awareness into the environment, speaking softly. Few can anticipate every movement while maintaining composure. Few can integrate observation, patience, and environment into flawless command. Will you act decisively? Orhan replies quietly, deliberate. Observation creates clarity. Patience ensures readiness. Awareness integrates sequences. When action is required, it will be precise, deliberate, and unstoppable, flowing from preparation, understanding, and strategy rather than fear, hesitation, or impulse. Another faint vibration pulses beneath the chamber floor, dust spiraling along glowing lines, revealing hidden intersections, pathways, and hazards, and Orhan sweeps his gaze across every pattern, predicting sequences, integrating movements, and forming a complete strategy while his Alps adjust imperceptibly, reinforcing arcs of coverage, demonstrating that control now flows through mind, men, and environment as a single coordinated system, prepared for flawless execution at exactly the right moment, leaving no variable unaccounted for and no detail overlooked. Orhan steps forward slightly, every muscle taut yet controlled, eyes sweeping every shadow, every faint vibration in the floor, every glint of reflected light along etched lines, integrating these subtle signals into a dynamic mental map, while his Alps adjust invisibly, maintaining arcs of coverage and positioning, forming a living lattice of readiness that demonstrates mastery not through reaction, but through anticipation, precision, and total synchronization of men, environment, and timing, allowing him to dictate the flow of every potential action before it even occurs. The first man inclines slightly, his voice low and deliberate. Few can maintain composure while anticipating every variable. Few can integrate observation, patience, and environment into seamless command. Are you prepared to act decisively when opportunity arrives? Orhan replies calmly, precise, unwavering. Observation has created clarity. Patience ensures readiness. Awareness integrates every potential sequence. When action is required, it will be deliberate, precise, unstoppable, and executed entirely according to calculated strategy, leaving no margin for error, hesitation, or distraction. A faint pulse travels through the chamber floor, dust spiraling along glowing etched lines, revealing hidden intersections, unseen hazards, and subtle pathways, and Orhan's gaze sweeps across each, integrating all elements into a complete strategic map, predicting responses and sequences while his Alps micro-adjust imperceptibly, reinforcing arcs of coverage, positioning, and readiness, demonstrating that command now flows seamlessly through mind, men, and environment as one dynamic system, poised for flawless execution at the precise moment without miscalculation. Another figure emerges from a shadowed alcove, testing timing, awareness, and composure, and Orhan integrates the presence instantly, micro-adjusting stance, posture, and weight while signaling imperceptibly to his Alps to maintain alignment, coverage, and synchronization, demonstrating that mastery is anticipation, observation, and integration rather than reaction, and that every potential threat, movement, or opportunity has already been calculated, allowing him to dictate the flow and sequence of every interaction in the chamber with absolute authority and precision. Orhan steps deliberately toward the center, eyes sweeping every figure, shadow, alignment, and vibration, integrating all into a cohesive mental map of strategy, anticipating sequences, predicting outcomes, while his Alps adjust seamlessly to maintain arcs of coverage, readiness, and positioning, demonstrating that awareness, patience, and observation have evolved into total command, allowing every action, movement, and breath to flow from his deliberate, calculated, an unstoppable will without hesitation, error, or distraction, fully prepared for decisive execution at the precise moment. The first man inclines subtly, acknowledging Orhan's perfect synchronization with his Alps, and speaks softly. Observation and patience have been mastered, but mastery is tested when action is required. Will you act decisively? Orhan replies calmly, unwavering. Observation creates clarity. Patience structures readiness. Awareness integrates sequences. When action becomes necessary, it will be precise, deliberate, unstoppable, executed entirely on my terms, flowing from strategy, anticipation, and understanding rather than fear, impulse, or hesitation. The glowing etched lines pulse faintly, dust spiraling along hidden intersections, revealing subtle pathways, unseen hazards, and alignments, and Orhan's gaze traces each with precision, integrating sequences, predicting outcomes, forming a complete strategic map while his alps adjust imperceptibly, reinforcing arcs of coverage, positioning, and synchronization, demonstrating that command now flows through men, environment, and sequences as a single unified system. Prepared to convert observation, patience, and awareness into flawless execution at the exact right moment without leaving any detail unaccounted. Orhan breathes slowly, syncing his rhythm with the subtle hum of the chamber, stepping slightly forward, narrowing the distance between himself and the first man, projecting calm authority while maintaining full awareness of every shadow, micro-vibration, and faint shift in alignment, demonstrating that mastery is anticipation and precise integration, allowing him to command environment, men, and timing simultaneously, preparing to transform observation and patience into perfect, flawless execution. Leaving nothing unobserved and no opportunity unaccounted for in the unfolding sequence. The first man inclines, nodding the micro-adjustments of Orhan's stance, the coordination of the Alps, and the flow of awareness into the environment, speaking softly. Few can anticipate every movement while maintaining composure. Few can integrate observation, patience, and environment into flawless command. Will you act decisively? Orhan replies quietly, deliberate. Observation creates clarity. Patience ensures readiness. Awareness integrates sequences. When action is required, it will be precise, deliberate, and unstoppable, flowing from preparation, understanding, and strategy rather than fear or hesitation. A faint vibration pulses beneath the chamber floor, dust spiraling along its lines, revealing hidden intersections, pathways, and hazards, and Orhan sweeps his gaze across every pattern, predicting sequences, integrating movements, and forming a complete strategy while his alps adjust imperceptibly, reinforcing arcs of coverage, demonstrating that control now flows through mind, men, and environment as a single coordinated system. Prepared for flawless execution at exactly the right moment, leaving no variable unaccounted and no detail overlooked. The valley ahead narrows again, flanked by jagged cliffs and thick groves of trees, each shadow stretching long and unnerving in the moonlight. Orhan Bey rides cautiously, every hoofbeat deliberate, every breath measured, knowing that the agents he encountered earlier have not retreated, they have merely shifted, hiding in preparation, waiting for the precise moment to test him further. The air grows colder, carrying faint echoes, a stone rolling from a distance, the soft snapping of a branch underfoot, the almost imperceptible rhythm of leaves rustling. Nothing moves visibly, yet everything signals danger, intention, awareness. Orhan Bey's hand rests lightly on the hilt of his sword, not in readiness to strike, but to balance, to anchor himself, to remain deliberate in the face of unseen threats. Then he notices it, subtle traces on the ground, a slightly disturbed patch of earth, the faint glint of metal half hidden beneath foliage, the arrangement of stones that does not match natural patterns. It is a trap, simple but calculated, designed to provoke reaction, to measure his instinct, to test his patience and control. Orhan Bey dismounts slowly, placing his horse behind him where it is visible yet protected. Every movement he makes communicates calm, confidence, and awareness. He crouches briefly, examining the ground, noting the placement of each stone, each branch, each potential hazard. This is not mere survival, this is information gathering, a careful calculation of probabilities, and a prelude to controlled action. The trap is subtle, a spring mechanism hidden under leaves, a tripwire designed to signal the presence of intruders, to draw attention to the movement of anyone unaware of its placement. But Orhan Bey sees it, understands it, and uses the moment to study the surrounding terrain, mapping every likely position an enemy could occupy, every possible vantage point for observation or ambush. A faint movement from above catches his eye, a shadow sliding along the cliff face, barely visible, almost imagined, yet deliberate. Another rustle in the underbrush to his left, a sound too precise to be accidental. Agents of the enemy are positioned, hidden, observing, waiting. They are skilled, trained, deliberate, but he has seen enough to anticipate their actions. Orhan Bey steps carefully through the trap, each foot placed with intent, avoiding pressure points, using his awareness to neutralize the hidden mechanisms. Each step is a statement. Awareness is armor, patience is weapon, observation is control. The enemy is watching, but they cannot unsettle him with what he has already anticipated. Then the rustling grows louder, faster, a subtle convergence of shadows. Two figures emerge from behind the rocks, their movements fluid, trained, deliberate. They do not charge, they do not attack recklessly. They are here to observe, to probe, to push limits. And Orhan Bey remains perfectly still, letting them define themselves through their actions, not his reaction. You are cautious, one of them murmurs, voice low and deliberate, yet caution can become hesitation. Awareness can become indecision. And the balance between patience and action, that balance is what determines survival. Orhan Bey meets the gaze without flinching, without hastening, without a sign of fear. Hesitation is calculated, awareness is strength, and balance is the path to victory when recklessness falters. The figures step closer, testing his positioning, subtly shifting, trying to provoke an instinctive reaction. Orhan Bey does not respond physically. Instead, he shifts mentally, calculating angles, trajectories, possibilities, contingencies. Every micro-movement of his body, every micro-adjustment of posture is deliberate, showing control without aggression. A sudden metallic flash to his left, a blade catching moonlight, demonstrates the first test of reflexes. Orhan Bey steps aside, not hurriedly, not with panic, but deliberately, maintaining composure, observing, calculating. He notes the trajectory, the timing, the placement of his attackers, and uses it to map the environment further, turning their attempt to provoke into his advantage. "You read too much," one of the agents says, a hint of admiration in the voice, and yet reading alone does not end conflicts. The moment of action, the instant of decisiveness, that is where outcomes are defined. Orhan Bey's lips curve slightly, almost imperceptibly. Action without observation is recklessness. Decisions without awareness are suicide, and you, though skilled, have underestimated patience, observation, and calculated movement. The agents circle, closing in slowly, deliberately, testing limits, pushing subtly, challenging his balance between awareness and instinct. The air hums with tension, every sound amplified, every shadow carrying intent. Orhan Bey's mind maps it all, calculating every possible sequence of events, every hidden threat, every potential escape or advantage. Then a controlled spring snaps beneath his foot, one of the traps, triggered intentionally by him as part of a test. It is not lethal, not aggressive, but it signals to the agents that he has fully understood the mechanics of their setup. His calm, deliberate movements reveal mastery over the environment, turning their own trap into a lesson in control and observation. The lead agent pauses, stepping back, voice low, deliberate. "You endure, you observe, you control. Few possess such clarity when faced with unseen danger. Yet know this, endurance alone is not enough. The real test is yet to come." Orhan Bey mounts again, scanning the pass, noting every hidden mark, every vantage point, every shadow. "I know," he replies, voice calm, unwavering, "and I am ready, not because the test is simple, but because preparation, observation, and patience are weapons that never fail when wielded correctly." The agents retreat, disappearing into the darkness, leaving behind the faintest traces of presence, marks on stones, subtle depressions in soil, a whisper of movement in the wind. Orhan Bey senses it all, cataloging, analyzing, converting each subtle signal into knowledge, strategy, and preparation for the next encounter. He rides onward, the valley opening into wider terrain, yet every step is measured, every breath calculated, every shadow observed. The trap was only the beginning, a first demonstration of the enemy's skill and intent. He knows the real confrontation is approaching, one that will test his patience, his observation, his ability to act decisively without being manipulated by fear or uncertainty. And in that understanding, he finds clarity, purpose, and the first tangible sense of control. The unseen war has escalated, the enemy's presence is no longer subtle, and the battlefield of minds, strategy, and perception is fully alive. Orhan Bey rides onward, fully aware that each decision, each observation, each measured step now carries consequence far beyond the immediate path. The next challenge is inevitable, and when it arrives, he will meet it not with panic, not with impulse, but with the clarity, patience, and control that define a true leader. The terrain opens into a narrow gorge, the cliffs rising sharply on either side, the shadows deepening into unnatural blackness as moonlight struggles to reach the ground. Orhan Bey senses it immediately. The moment of observation is over. The trap was a signal, the test a prelude. Now the enemy moves with precision, coordination, and intent. Every rustle, every subtle sound carries purpose. A whisper of movement from above, a rock shifting slightly, alerts him, then another and another. From the cliff edges, shadows descend, fluid, deliberate, trained to converge without warning. They are silent, but their presence presses against him, almost tangible, as if the very air has become a weapon aimed at testing his composure. Orhan Bey dismounts, letting the horse retreat slightly to a safe distance, controlled but accessible. His eyes scan, his senses sharpen, every fiber of his being alert to the rhythm of movement, the patterns of intent, the subtle cues the enemy cannot conceal. This is not a mere skirmish, it is a challenge of perception, strategy, and control. Two figures drop from above, landing lightly but with precision. Others follow their descent coordinated, almost artistic in execution, each movement calculated to probe his reactions. Orhan Bey remains still, observing, calculating, letting the enemy reveal themselves without giving away his intent. The gorge itself is part of the enemy's design, narrow, confined, ideal for testing agility, patience, and decision-making under pressure. A faint metallic flash catches his eye, daggers, arrows, small projectiles designed to provoke a defensive move. Orhan Bey does not flinch. He sidesteps deliberately, letting the weapons pass harmlessly, every movement controlled, every gesture calculated to communicate mastery of environment and circumstance. Observation is his armor, patience his shield, awareness his sword. "You move with caution," a voice calls from the shadows, low, deliberate, carrying authority without urgency. Yet caution alone will not carry you through what lies ahead. Decisions must be made, actions taken without hesitation when the moment demands. Orhan Bey does not respond immediately. He lets silence stretch, forcing the enemy to measure his composure, to test his limits. Each pause communicates confidence, calm, and mastery, conveying without words that he is not merely surviving, he is dominating the battlefield of observation and strategy. Then a subtle signal, a shift of posture, a step slightly too loud alerts him to a coordinated maneuver. The enemy is attempting to flank, to push him toward the edge of the gorge, to control his options and force reaction. Orhan Bey pivots slowly, deliberately, adjusting position, neutralizing the tactical advantage without striking, without aggression, without haste. One figure lunges, silent, precise, aiming to provoke a misstep. Orhan Bey steps aside, almost imperceptibly, letting the motion pass, maintaining control of the center, the vantage, and the rhythm of the engagement. Every movement communicates calculation, not impulse, strategy, not reflex, control, not desperation. A second figure circles, attempting to create imbalance, a visual distraction, a psychological prod. Orhan Bey's gaze sweeps the gorge, noting the angles, spacing, weight shifts, the faintest tells of muscle tension, breathing, and intent. He anticipates, adjusts, survives not by strength but by awareness, not by force but by perception. The first arrow whistles past his ear, a warning not intended to kill but to gauge his response. Orhan Bey does not flinch. He lets it pass, noting its trajectory, the skill of the archer, the subtle cues of timing and distance. Observation transforms threat into intelligence, danger becomes insight. A third agent drops from above, aiming for precision, attempting a distraction. Orhan Bey steps lightly, using the narrow space to his advantage, forcing the enemy into positions where they reveal themselves further. Each measured movement draws out their intent while exposing their limitations. "You read too much," a voice murmurs, almost admiringly, and yet awareness alone will not define victory. The moment of choice, the instant of action, determines outcome. Will you act or will you be forced to? Orhan Bey finally responds, voice calm, deliberate, unwavering. "Action without awareness is recklessness. Observation without resolve is meaningless. I act with clarity, precision, and intent, not haste, not fear, not impulse. And when I strike, it is with purpose beyond your measurement." The enemy hesitates, recalibrates, adjusting their approach to account for his mastery of the environment. But Orhan Bey has already mapped their positions, noted their coordination, anticipated their flanking maneuvers, and prepared contingencies that make every attempted pressure against him ineffective. Suddenly, a controlled volley of small projectiles descends, meant to distract, divide, provoke panic. Orhan Bey steps deliberately, weaving, shifting, positioning himself with perfect balance, forcing the attackers to reveal their tactics and their limitations. The gorge becomes a chessboard, every movement a calculated play in a silent game of skill and observation. "You endure," a voice whispers from above, and yet endurance alone is not enough. Precision, timing, awareness, they must combine to survive, and this is only the first test. Orhan Bey adjusts his stance, breathes evenly, letting the chaos settle around him. Every step, every movement, every measured pause is a lesson in control. He is no longer reacting. He is commanding the battlefield of perception, turning their attempts to unsettle him into data, into insight, into mastery. The enemy agents retreat slowly, realizing that brute force, skill, and coordination cannot overcome his awareness, patience, and clarity. Each step they take leaves behind traces of presence, knowledge that he absorbs fully, cataloging for the challenges yet to come. Orhan Bey mounts again, surveying the gorge, noting the marks of their attempt, the subtle traces of flanking, the rhythm of their retreat. The first coordinated assault is over not by victory or violence, but by mastery of mind, perception, and deliberate control. And in that moment, he understands fully. The enemy's strength lies in coordination, subtlety, and precision. His strength lies in patience, awareness, and the unshakable clarity of a leader who does not react. He calculates, observes, endures, and shapes the battlefield without drawing a sword. The gorge opens ahead into wider terrain, yet every step now carries the echo of what has just occurred. Every shadow, every sound, every subtle motion is charged with potential danger. Every decision will ripple through the battlefield of perception, and Orhan Bey moves forward, fully prepared, fully aware, fully in control. The night presses on, dark, silent, alive with unseen currents. The first assault has passed. The real war, measured, calculated, relentless, has only just begun. The valley widens into a plateau, but its calm is deceptive, an invitation designed by unseen hands. Orhan Bey senses it immediately. This is no ordinary terrain, no natural path. Every slope, every shadow, every curve of the land has been subtly shaped or chosen to channel movement, to create opportunity, to force observation into action. It is a trap, not lethal yet, but intricate, layered, and designed to test not just skill, but mind, patience, and foresight. He slows his horse, letting instinct guide him through the deceptive calm. Every sound is amplified: the faint rustle of leaves, the distant drip of water from cliffs, the whisper of wind shifting rocks ever so slightly. Each carries intention, each demands analysis, each signals the careful orchestration of those watching. The enemy has prepared well, but Orhan Bey has learned to read the currents beneath the surface. From the forested edges, faint movement catches his attention, shadows flitting between trees, subtle shifts in position. They are scouts, observers, measuring, calculating, communicating without sound. Orhan Bey does not react hastily. He catalogues each motion, each spacing, each rhythm. Observation is armor, awareness is weapon, and patience is shield. Then the first sign of the trap manifests: a volley of arrows raining down, precise, coordinated, yet deliberately non-lethal. They are testing boundaries, measuring reaction, gauging composure. Orhan Bey does not flinch. He moves deliberately, sidestepping each projectile with calm, letting the enemy reveal their skill while he turns their test into data. From the cliffs above, more shadows descend. Coordinated, silent, fluid, a symphony of controlled movement designed to unsettle, divide, and confuse. Orhan Bey positions himself in the center of the plateau, deliberately exposing himself while mapping the terrain, cataloging angles, trajectories, and enemy positioning. "You are bold," a voice murmurs from above, low and calm, "yet boldness without understanding is death. You may move with patience, with clarity, but even clarity must bend to the pressure of action." Orhan Bey studies the plateau, noting every incline, every possible cover, every angle of attack. He does not speak, does not rush, does not react. He waits, allowing the enemy to reveal the full scope of their strategy, understanding that control is not seized through haste but through observation, insight, and deliberate positioning. The shadows shift suddenly, converging, coordinating an approach from multiple directions. The first real test begins. Orhan Bey steps lightly, pivoting, adjusting, turning the narrow confines of rocks and ridges to his advantage. Every movement is controlled, precise, deliberate. The enemy's coordination is skillful, yet he predicts, adapts, and neutralizes without aggression. Then, a sudden flash, a controlled trap sprung, a pit covered with loose stones designed to catch an unobservant foot. Orhan Bey halts, steps aside, allowing the trap to reveal itself without consequence. Observation has once again turned threat into knowledge, danger into insight. The enemy agents descend further, attempting to provoke instinctive reaction, testing patience with small, sudden movements. A branch snapping, a stone rolling, a shadow darting into view. Orhan Bey reads each gesture, calculating probabilities, predicting the outcome of every micro-movement. The battlefield is not one of force, it is one of perception, strategy, and controlled timing. "You endure," a voice whispers from above, yet endurance is only the beginning. Timing, perception, and decisive action define those who survive and those who dominate. Orhan Bey does not respond immediately. He steps into a narrow corridor of the plateau, deliberately exposing himself to observation, forcing the enemy to reveal their intent, forcing the flow of action into his perception. He does not strike, he does not panic, he acts with calm authority, demonstrating mastery of terrain, presence, and control. Suddenly, from the left flank, a figure lunges, attempting to provoke a defensive reaction. Orhan Bey sidesteps smoothly, using the attacker's motion to observe, not to counter. The figure miscalculates, revealing subtle weaknesses in positioning, spacing, and rhythm. Every movement becomes intelligence, every test becomes data, and Orhan Bey absorbs it all. A second agent moves from behind, a silent convergence seeking to trap him between two forces. Orhan Bey pivots, steps deliberately, maintaining awareness, forcing them to expose further angles. The trap expands, yet he is calm, deliberate, unmoved by urgency, unshaken by pressure. Observation continues to be his shield, awareness his sword. "You are patient," the voice murmurs again, yet patience alone does not win battles. Timing, insight, and resolve, these are the instruments of power, and power is measured not by survival alone, but by mastery. Orhan Bey's gaze sweeps the plateau, calculating angles of approach, distances, potential exits, and unseen hazards. Each agent's movement, each shadow's shift, each subtle cue becomes a layer of information, a thread in a tapestry of strategy he weaves in real time. Then, a sudden controlled volley, arrows and small projectiles, coordinated from multiple directions, forces him to move decisively, yet every motion is precise, every step calculated, neutralizing threat without chaos. The trap is real now, full-scale, yet he navigates it with clarity, turning enemy aggression into controlled observation. The lead voice from above finally speaks, carrying authority and subtle respect. "You endure, you observe, yet remember this, the true test is not the trap before you, but the consequences that follow. Every step, every choice, every calculated action echoes further than you imagine." Orhan Bey nods slightly, unshaken, mounting his horse once again. He surveys the plateau, the marks of the trap, the positioning of agents, the subtle signs of coordination, the pathways through danger. Observation has turned threat into knowledge, danger into insight, tension into preparation. The enemy retreats slowly, deliberately, leaving behind faint traces of presence, marks in the dirt, subtle shifts in stones, the faintest whisper of movement. Orhan Bey absorbs every detail, cataloging for future encounters, understanding fully that the first large-scale trap has revealed not just the enemy's skill, but their patience, strategy, and intent. He rides forward deeper into the plateau, aware that each step carries consequence, that each decision echoes through the battlefield of perception, and that the real war, calculated, relentless, unseen, is only beginning. Every shadow, every movement, every sound is now part of his understanding. The trap has passed, the test has been survived, but the challenge ahead promises far greater danger, requiring not just patience, not just awareness, but decisive mastery of strategy, action, and mind. As the weight of uncertainty continues to settle over every Arabic ket, Arabic tot, Arabic wow, Arabic tet merbuta Orhan Bey takes, and as the invisible threads of this hidden war begin to tighten around him with a precision that can no longer be ignored, there comes a moment, quiet, almost unnoticeable at first, where the rhythm of events begins to change. Not suddenly, not violently, but deliberately. Because there are moments in every great struggle where the unseen finally chooses to be seen. And this is one of those moments. The land is calm, almost too calm, as if even the wind has chosen to hold its breath, as if the world itself understands that something significant is about to unfold, something that will shift the direction of everything that has come before. Orhan Bey rides forward, not with a large force, not with the presence of an army, but with intention, with awareness, with a quiet understanding that this path he now follows is not leading him toward a battle. It is leading him toward an answer. Because the patterns have become too clear, the disruptions too precise, the silence too controlled, and a leader like Orhan Bey does not chase shadows forever. At some point, he forces them into the light. The Arabic Khalif, Arabic Lam, Arabic Meme, Arabic Kaf, Arabic Khalif, Arabic Noon is isolated, far from the reach of ordinary eyes, far from the sha'um of conflict, a place where conversations carry more weight than swords, where decisions can shape outcomes without a single drop of blood being spilled. And it is here that the unseen enemy finally reveals a piece of himself. Not through an army, not through a threat, but through a presence. A figure stands waiting. Still, calm, unshaken, as if this meeting was not unexpected but inevitable. And in that moment, everything becomes clear. Because Orhan Bey is no longer facing a distant force. He is standing before the mind behind it. There are no raised weapons, no immediate hostility, only silence, heavy, measured, filled with meaning. Because this is not a meeting of warriors. This is a meeting of power. The figure does not rush to speak, does not attempt to intimidate, does not reveal more than necessary. Because true control does not need to announce itself. It is understood. And Orhan Bey understands. Because he sees it in the stillness, in the confidence, in the absence of fear. This is not a man who fights battles. This is a man who decides them. When words are finally spoken, they are not loud, not emotional, not driven by anger or urgency, but calm, deliberate, each sentence carrying layers beneath its surface, each phrase designed not just to communicate, but to test, to observe, to measure. Because this is not a conversation. This is an evaluation. The hidden enemy does not accuse, does not threaten directly. Instead, he speaks of balance, of order, of the dangers of rising too quickly in a world that is not yet ready to accept change. And beneath those words is a message. You are being watched. You are being measured. And your future is not entirely your own. But Orhan Bey does not respond with fear. He does not lower himself to doubt. Because everything he has faced, every betrayal, every battle, every test has led him to this moment. And in this moment, he does not stand as a man being judged. He stands as a leader who has already proven himself. His words, when they come, are just as controlled, just as deliberate, not driven by emotion, but by certainty, because he understands that this encounter is not about immediate victory. It is about position. A line is drawn not on the Arabic zayn, Arabic meme, Arabic farsi ye, Arabic noon, but in understanding. Not with swords, but with intention. Because both men now know that this is only the beginning of something far greater. There is no agreement, no resolution, no clear end, only acknowledgement. And sometimes, that is more powerful than conflict. As Orhan Bey turns to leave, as the distance between them begins to grow once again, as the silence returns to the Arabic Khalif, Arabic lam, Arabic meme, Arabic kaf, Arabic Khalif, Arabic noon that has just witnessed the beginning of a new chapter, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. This war is no longer hidden. It has a face, a mind, a purpose. And from this moment forward, every move will be more dangerous, every decision more critical, every mistake more costly. Because now, both sides are aware of each other. And awareness changes everything. Back in the camp, the air feels different, heavier, charged with something unseen but deeply felt, as if the world itself is preparing for what comes next, as if every Arabic ket, Arabic tot, Arabic wow, Arabic tet merbuta forward will now carry consequences far beyond what anyone can see. And Orhan Bey returns not with answers, but with clarity, because he now understands the truth of this war. This is not a battle for land, not a fight for survival, not even a struggle for power alone. This is a test of vision, of patience, of control. And the next phase will decide everything. The sky stretches wide, heavy with the quiet of anticipation, as if even the heavens themselves pause to witness the choices being made below. Orhan Bey rides forward, not with the clamor of an army, not with the banners of conquest, but with a singular purpose etched into every measured movement, every deliberate breath. Each step of his horse presses into the earth as though marking time itself, counting the seconds that separate inevitability from revelation. The land around him seems suspended, neither alive nor dead, but poised, waiting for a moment that only those who can see beyond the ordinary can recognize. Shadows cling to the edges of the hills, not random but calculated, as though even nature conspires to hint at truths just beyond the reach of casual perception. Orhan Bey does not flinch. He does not search for what is hidden. He knows that what must be seen will reveal itself in its own time. And then, as if drawn by invisible currents, he arrives at a clearing that exists beyond maps, beyond the whispers of soldiers and the chatter of courts. The air itself carries a weight, not of threat, but of expectation, of understanding that in this place, words are heavier than steel and silence carries the authority of a decree. There is no wind, no movement, only a presence that settles into the space like a stone dropped into a still pool, ripples of meaning extending far beyond what the eye can capture. There, standing alone, is the figure who has orchestrated so much from the shadows. Not an enemy of brute force, not a rival of rash fury, but a mind that has seen the patterns of history unfold before it, that has measured the ambitions of men and found them wanting or worthy. The figure waits not with impatience, not with arrogance, but with the quiet certainty of one who understands that time, patience, and observation are the truest weapons. Orhan Bey dismounts slowly, each movement deliberate, each step a message of his own. He does not raise his voice. He does not brandish a sword. He does not need to. Because power that is real is recognized without announcement. It is measured without ceremony. And in the stillness between them, a conversation begins, not with words alone, but with the weight of presence, the silent exchange of calculation and comprehension. The first words are soft, almost imperceptible, yet each syllable cuts deeper than any blade could. They speak of order, of caution, of forces that rise too quickly and fall even faster when the world is not ready to receive them. They speak of balance, of the cost of ambition, of the eyes that watch and the hands that guide, unseen but inescapable. And beneath this surface, Orhan Bey senses the deeper truth. He is being measured, tested, and yet not judged. He is recognized for what he is and warned of what he might become. He does not respond with anger. He does not react with fear. Every gesture, every glance, every word he allows himself to speak is precise, controlled, deliberate. He knows that this moment is not about immediate triumph. It is about recognition. It is about understanding that the game being played is far greater than any battle, far broader than any territory, far more dangerous than any blade. And as the conversation unfolds, it becomes clear. The enemy he faces is not defined by armies, not confined by borders, not driven by hatred alone. This is a force of vision, of patience, of inevitability. And Orhan Bey, standing there, feeling the weight of this recognition settle upon him like both a mantle and a challenge, understands with a clarity that pierces through years of struggle. Victory is not measured by the conquest of land or the spilling of blood, but by the alignment of thought, the precision of choice, the capacity to endure and adapt in a world that constantly tests the limits of resolve. When the meeting ends, there is no applause, no declaration, no sign of victory, only acknowledgement. And acknowledgement carries its own power, heavier than any sword, sharper than any arrow. Orhan Bey returns to his people not with answers, not with the comfort of certainty, but with something far more valuable, understanding. He knows now that every step forward will be fraught, every decision will echo in ways unseen, every enemy may be closer than imagined. And yet in this awareness there is strength. In this understanding there is clarity. The war that has once been hidden, subtle, and untraceable now has a face, a mind, a presence. The chessboard has been set, the pieces in motion, and both sides now move with eyes open, knowing that every misstep, every hesitation, every act of recklessness could alter the outcome irreversibly. Orhan Bey mounts again, the horse beneath him, a silent companion to the weight on his shoulders, and as he rides into the fading light, the world around him is no longer the same. It has changed, not in form, but in meaning. Every hill, every river, every silent witness becomes a testament to what is at stake. And in the quiet rhythm of his movement, he feels it. The test is only beginning, the war is only unfolding, and the measure of a leader is not in the battles he fights, but in the awareness he carries, the patience he wields, and the vision that guides him through shadows toward what must inevitably be seen. The night grows colder, the air sharper, as if the darkness itself has taken notice of him. Orhan Bey rides through paths carved by memory and instinct, aware that every stone beneath his horse's hooves, every rustle of leaves, every distant owl is part of a world alive with observation. He knows now that no movement goes unseen, no silence goes unmeasured, and no step is without consequence. He passes a narrow stream, its water whispering secrets as it flows, and he pauses briefly, letting his hand brush the surface, feeling its current. Even in such a simple gesture, he senses patterns, signals, and warnings. The enemy has ways of marking territory, of sending messages hidden in plain sight, and he has learned that to overlook even the smallest detail can unravel the grandest plan. The forest thickens and the shadows press closer. He feels them not with fear, but with attention, the intangible presence of eyes that track him, of thought that follows him, of intentions that are calculated, deliberate, patient. Every movement is a word in a silent conversation he has been trained to read, and he reads it all. A crack of a branch to his left, almost imperceptible, makes him shift slightly, not out of surprise, but readiness. He studies the darkness not as an enemy, but as a puzzle, as a map of hidden intentions. He has learned that the unseen often leaves traces, and that knowledge is the weapon that never falters. Ahead, a faint glow breaks the darkness. Not fire, not torchlight, but a shimmer of movement, almost like a reflection, almost like a signal. Orhan Bey slows his horse, letting the light draw him forward, letting the presence that created it reveal itself in its own terms. Patience, he reminds himself, has always been the path to understanding. The glow resolves into a figure, crouched and still, watching him approach. Not a man of brute force, not a soldier armed with blades, but a shadowy sentinel, trained, deliberate, almost ethereal. Orhan Bey observes, measuring every angle, every subtle shift, every hint of intent. There is no fear here, only calculation. The figure speaks, voice low, almost a murmur blending with the wind. I have been sent to observe, to see if you are prepared for what comes next. Not a threat, not a challenge, but a test, a single line carrying more weight than 1,000 swords. Orhan Bey does not respond immediately. He lets the silence stretch, letting the words settle, letting the presence of the other confirm what he already knows. This war is no longer distant. It has moved into the shadows, into the very spaces between thought and action, into the unseen currents of influence and power. Finally, he speaks, voice steady, deliberate, precise. I am prepared for what is necessary, not for what you wish, but for what is required. Each word measured, each syllable a declaration that he is no longer merely a participant in events, but a force shaping them. The sentinel rises, fluid, deliberate, stepping from shadow into partial moonlight, revealing a figure trained, controlled, and disciplined beyond ordinary measure. Then we shall see, he says, tone calm, almost detached. We shall see if vision matches resolve, if patience withstands the storm, if leadership is more than words and presence more than perception. Orhan Bey dismounts, feeling the weight of the encounter press against him like a tangible force. The night feels alive with tension, charged with anticipation, each sound magnified, each shadow a possible clue. He knows that to misstep, to underestimate, to hesitate would invite disaster not from brute force but from precision, calculation, and unseen strategy. The sentinel moves slowly around him, circling, measuring, silent but deliberate. Orhan Bey senses every step, every breath, every shift in weight, understanding the subtle conversation occurring without a word, a battle of presence, of observation, of awareness. You understand the stakes, then, the figure murmurs. Not just survival, not just power, but influence. Every choice you make now echoes farther than you perceive. Every hesitation is noted. Every decision carries weight beyond your immediate understanding. Orhan Bey nods slightly, calm but resolute. I understand, he replies, and I accept, not because it is easy, but because it must be done, not because it is safe, but because it is necessary, not because I fear the consequences, but because I know they are inevitable. The sentinel pauses, their eyes meeting in a silent acknowledgement that transcends words. In that gaze, Orhan Bey feels the first true weight of this war, not the clash of swords, not the roar of armies, but the quiet, relentless pressure of forces that cannot be ignored, of strategy that cannot be countered without clarity and vision. You are watched, the sentinel says almost softly, almost kindly, though the tone carries the weight of inevitability. Measured, observed, tested, and yet capable for now. Orhan Bey does not flinch, he does not retreat. He allows the words to settle, to resonate, to become part of the understanding he carries within him. Knowledge is power, and awareness is the first step toward mastery. The sentinel begins to fade into the darkness once more, not in flight, not in fear, but deliberately, leaving behind the silent impression of presence, the unmistakable reminder that this world is more complex, more dangerous, and more precise than any battlefield can convey. Orhan Bey remounts, feeling the chill of night against his skin, the stillness of the forest pressing in from all sides. Each step of his horse is measured, deliberate, echoing like a heartbeat, a reminder that this journey is far from over, that every path is now fraught with observation, every shadow carries intent, every sound may conceal threat. He rides on, the stars now obscured by clouds, and feels the weight of understanding settle fully upon him. The war is no longer hidden. It has form, it has mind, it has purpose. And Orhan Bey, aware and unyielding, knows that every action, every choice, every silent movement must now be conducted with precision beyond what ordinary men can fathom. The forest gradually thins, and he reaches the edge of a valley, its open expanse offering no cover, no sanctuary. And in that exposure he feels the first stirrings of anticipation, the silent prelude to confrontation, the knowledge that this war of minds will soon spill into action. He pauses at the edge, gazing at the horizon, and in that moment a quiet understanding forms. The path ahead will test not only strength and resolve, but patience, vision, and the ability to act when the unseen moves with perfect timing. The real battle has begun. And Orhan Bey, steadfast, measured, unshaken, rides forward, not blindly, not recklessly, but with the unwavering certainty of one who has been forged for this moment. One who understands that survival is measured not in victories alone, but in clarity, foresight, and the relentless pursuit of mastery in a world that has only just begun to reveal its true face. The valley opens before him, wide and deceptively calm, as though nature itself conspires to hide the currents of danger flowing beneath its surface. Orhan Bey rides slowly, each step measured, every sense sharpened to the point of awareness that nothing is accidental here. The wind shifts, carrying faint sounds, branches snapping, stones rolling, a cadence too deliberate to be natural. Someone or something watches, and he knows it. A shadow detaches itself from the darkness along the ridge, moving with the precision of a hunter, silent and deliberate. Orhan Bey's hand rests lightly on the hilt of his sword, not out of expectation of combat, but as an instinctive preparation for observation, for measurement. He studies the motion, the rhythm, the subtle intention of the figure. Every movement speaks, every pause conveys meaning. The figure halts, crouched atop a low rock, and in the dim light of the rising moon, he sees the glint of a blade, not raised, not threatening yet, but deliberately positioned to indicate purpose. Orhan Bey does not flinch. He breathes evenly, allowing the silence to stretch into understanding, letting the world communicate truths that words could never convey. Another shadow emerges from the forest, then another, each moving with careful coordination, each blending into the landscape with the skill of predators, not soldiers. Orhan Bey recognizes the pattern immediately. This is reconnaissance, not attack, surveillance, not confrontation. Yet the intent is unmistakable. They are testing him, probing his response, observing his control. He dismounts slowly, letting his horse graze at the edge of the clearing, and steps forward. Every sound he makes is deliberate, every movement calculated. He does not speak. He does not signal. The agents of the enemy are meant to gauge, to measure, to unsettle, and the moment he reacts impulsively, he will give them power. The lead figure steps closer, light now revealing the faint insignia of organization, of strategy, of silent but lethal coordination. "You have moved farther than we anticipated," a voice says, low and calm, carrying the weight of control. "Yet here you are, exposed, unguarded, unshielded, and we are watching." Orhan Bey meets the gaze without hesitation, without fear. "Exposure is not vulnerability," he replies, voice calm, deliberate, carrying certainty. "It is observation, it is understanding, it is control, and control is not a matter of weapons but of perception." The agents pause, each evaluating him with measured attention. The moonlight glints on hidden daggers, on subtle marks of armor, on the careful spacing between them. But Orhan Bey does not flinch, does not retreat. He understands that this encounter is not about battle, it is about observation, testing, influence. Another step forward, another measured word. "We measure all who approach, all who claim awareness," the lead voice continues. "Your past victories, your patience, your decisions, they are known. And yet we must see if you can navigate the terrain ahead, unseen forces pressing from every direction, unseen calculations guiding every movement." Orhan Bey nods slightly. "I do not move blindly, I do not act without awareness. Every path, every step, every shadow, every sound is accounted for. You may observe, but you do not define me. You may test, but you do not control me." The agents shift, a silent signal between them, and one moves closer to flank him from the forest edge. Orhan Bey does not react with hostility. He does not attack. Instead, he steps into the light fully, exposing himself intentionally, showing calm, showing control, demonstrating the awareness that no act of intimidation can unsettle. "You are confident," the voice says, almost admiringly, "but confidence is fragile. Observation is relentless. The world will not bend to desire alone." Orhan Bey's gaze sweeps the valley, the forest, the hidden slopes, every natural cover. "I do not bend the world to desire," he replies. "I move with understanding, I act with knowledge, and I endure because awareness is my weapon and patience is my shield." The lead figure signals subtly, and two more shadows detach themselves from the forest. They circle him slowly, testing, probing, challenging his reactions without making a single aggressive move. Each one is precise, coordinated, silent, a demonstration of the enemy's reach and skill, and Orhan Bey observes everything. Every step, every pause, every shift of attention. A small smile forms on his lips, quiet, unspoken. He does not underestimate them. He does not belittle the skill they possess, but he recognizes the limits of observation, the limits of fear, the limits of intimidation. Knowledge is stronger than surprise, patience stronger than impulsive action. "You understand the game," the voice says, almost softly, almost kindly, "yet the game is far from over. Choices now, steps taken in silence, in shadow, in observation, they will echo far beyond this valley, far beyond what you see, and the cost of miscalculation is greater than you imagine." Orhan Bey steps forward deliberately, placing himself fully in view of all the agents. "I do not miscalculate," he says. "I do not act recklessly. I do not yield to fear or uncertainty. I watch, I learn, I endure, and when the moment comes, I act not for glory, not for recognition, but for what must be done." The lead figure pauses, studying him fully, as if measuring not just words but intention, presence, and resolve. "Then we shall watch," the voice says finally. "We shall see, and when the time comes, your endurance, your awareness, your choices will be tested as never before." Orhan Bey mounts his horse, every movement calm, controlled, deliberate. The agents retreat silently into the shadows, leaving no trace but the impression of presence, the subtle knowledge that they were there, that they observed, that they measured him. And as he rides into the night, he feels the weight of what has begun pressing upon him, the awareness that every step forward is watched, every plan is measured, every act carries consequence beyond immediate understanding. The unseen war now has agents in motion, subtle, coordinated, patient. The moon rises higher, illuminating the valley in silver light, and Orhan Bey senses the first true pulse of this next phase, a war not fought with swords alone, but with strategy, perception, patience, and calculated action. He rides on, fully aware, fully present, knowing that the next move will be decisive, not for now, not for immediate victory, but for the shaping of destiny itself. The forest thins, and Orhan Bey enters a narrow pass flanked by steep cliffs, where the shadows deepen, curling like dark fingers around the edges of the path. He senses the air shift, heavier now, carrying the faint metallic scent of hidden weapons, the subtle disturbance of ground recently disturbed. It is no accident. This is a place chosen with intent, designed to test him, to measure his control, his patience, and his vision. He slows, feeling the rhythm of the horse beneath him, letting each hoofbeat communicate calm, confidence, and readiness. The silence stretches, oppressive but informative, each creak of timber, each distant animal call, each whisper of wind carrying meaning. He reads them all. Nothing is random here. Every sound, every shadow, every pattern of movement is deliberate, calculated, and meant to provoke response. Then he notices it, a stone slightly raised, unnaturally placed on the narrow path. Not a trap in the immediate sense, but a marker, a test. A subtle disturbance in the environment that says clearly, you are being watched, measured, observed. Orhan Bey does not touch it. He does not react. He simply notes it, memorizes it, and moves forward, his mind cataloging each detail as though mapping the unseen currents of the battlefield itself. The wind shifts again, and from above, a faint shadow slides across the cliff face. A scout, perhaps, or a sniper. Orhan Bey observes, analyzing the trajectory, the distance, the angle. He does not panic. He does not flinch. The moment has not yet demanded action. Observation is the weapon now, patience the shield, and awareness the armor that will protect him before any clash occurs. A rustle in the underbrush to his right, almost imperceptible, alerts him further. Two figures emerge, moving carefully, silently, their steps calculated to avoid detection until the last possible moment. They are not reckless, they are precise, trained, deliberate. And Orhan Bey knows exactly what they intend, to test his reactions, to provoke a misstep, to observe his control under subtle pressure. He dismounts deliberately, letting the horse stand still, calm, a symbol of control amid tension. Every movement he makes is deliberate, slow, calculated, showing neither fear nor aggression. The figures halt, watching, evaluating, recognizing that the man before them is not ordinary. He does not react with hostility, but with awareness, with clarity, with patience beyond what most could endure. "You have come far," one of the figures murmurs, voice low, careful, carrying authority without threat. "Yet the path ahead is fraught with choices, each observed, each recorded. One wrong step, one hesitation could change everything." Orhan Bey studies them carefully, eyes scanning, observing their posture, their spacing, their subtle cues. "Every choice is noted," he replies, voice steady, deliberate, unwavering. "Every path calculated, and yet the one who controls perception controls the outcome. You may test me, but you cannot unsettle me. You may observe, but you do not define me." The two figures shift slightly, a silent signal between them, then one moves closer, testing his response, stepping into the narrow path as though blocking it subtly, silently. Orhan Bey does not step back. He does not draw a weapon. Instead, he moves forward with measured calm, forcing them to adjust, forcing them to react to him, demonstrating control not through force but through awareness, presence, and unshakable patience. "You are aware," the first voice says, almost approvingly, "but awareness alone is not enough. Adaptation, decisiveness, the ability to act when all else hesitates, that is the true test, and it begins now." Suddenly, a small detonation echoes in the distance, a diversion, a signal, a controlled warning. Orhan Bey feels it in his chest, registering the vibration, the timing, the intent. The agents are testing him, seeing if instinct overrides observation, seeing if training bends under pressure. He does not flinch, he does not falter. Every heartbeat is steady, every thought precise, every sense sharpened. He steps forward, closer to the agents, letting the narrowness of the pass emphasize the tension, the stakes, the calculated danger. Each of them mirrors his movements, slow, deliberate, measuring. This is not combat, it is a battle of control, of psychology, of presence. And Orhan Bey dominates it without striking, without threatening, simply by observing, analyzing, and projecting unshakable certainty. "You understand," one of them says finally, voice lower now, more deliberate, "that observation is not mercy, that patience is not weakness, that presence alone is measured, tested, and recorded, and that every misstep echoes further than you can perceive." Orhan Bey nods slightly unshaken. "I understand," he replies, "and I endure, not because it is simple, not because it is safe, but because it is necessary. And I act only when required with precision and certainty because the path forward is defined by awareness, not haste." The agents pause, recognizing that their subtle trap has been seen, understood, and neutralized, not by violence, but by comprehension, by patience, by clarity. They retreat slowly into the shadows, leaving behind the echo of presence, the reminder that the unseen is always watching, always measuring, always testing. Orhan Bey mounts again, scanning the path ahead, feeling the weight of the encounter settle into his awareness. The pass is now empty, yet the tension lingers, a silent reminder that danger is not always visible, that observation itself can be a weapon, and that awareness is the shield that protects against unseen threats. He rides onward, each step deliberate, each breath measured, fully conscious that this first test is but a prelude to the challenges yet to come. The night stretches before him, dark, unpredictable, alive with potential traps, hidden agents, and forces he cannot yet see but must anticipate. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, every shadow becomes part of a mental map, a web of information he carries forward with precision. He knows now that the next phase will demand more than patience. It will demand instinct, decisiveness, and an unwavering understanding of the balance between awareness and action. He pauses briefly on a ridge, looking back over the pass, feeling the weight of what has just occurred. This encounter, though devoid of battle, has revealed more than the enemy intended. It has confirmed his awareness, his discipline, and his capacity to move through danger without fear, without haste, without error. And in that clarity, he feels the first real pulse of power, not brute strength, not armies, not weapons, but the certainty that comes from understanding, that comes from observing, that comes from enduring. The enemy has revealed a fragment of intent, and Orhan Bey has read it fully, without falter, without hesitation. He turns, looking toward the valley beyond, where the next challenge awaits, unseen, patient, and deliberate. Every agent, every shadow, every subtle signal now has meaning. And he carries forward the knowledge that the unseen war has begun in earnest, that strategy, awareness, and control will define the outcome long before swords are drawn. The night is quiet again, yet charged with tension, and Orhan Bey rides onward, fully aware that every step now carries consequence, every decision will ripple across unseen currents, and that the true battle has only just begun. The chamber breathes around them, not with air, but with tension, every shadow stretching longer as Orhan Bey steps forward deliberately. His eyes never leaving the man before him, each Arabic het, Arabic rot, Arabic kaf, Arabic tet merbuta measured and full of quiet authority. And behind him the Alps follow perfectly, aware that one wrong step could turn the delicate balance into chaos, but trusting completely that their bey knows exactly when and how the next action must unfold. The man before Orhan watches him closely, his posture relaxed but alert, every Chinese letter movement calibrated, signaling nothing overtly but communicating volumes through subtle presence, and Orhan reads it with the same precision, understanding that this encounter is not won by speed or strength, but by awareness, anticipation, and the mastery of timing, because the chamber itself responds not to force but to control. A faint rumble echoes beneath their feet, low and rolling, almost imperceptible, yet enough to remind everyone present that this is not ordinary stone, that this space was engineered to test mind as much as body. And Orhan adjusts subtly, aligning his stance, feeling the rhythm of the chamber through the soles of his boots, matching it, moving with it, becoming part of its pulse without losing command over himself or his men. The figures at the edges of the chamber shift minutely, just enough to suggest readiness, their hands resting lightly on weapons, but not fully drawn, waiting for the signal that will not come until Orhan decides the moment is right. And the man across from him tilts his head, acknowledging the composure, nodding that Orhan's calm is not passivity but a deliberate, unshakable presence, one that has learned to read the design of the trap as if it were written in plain sight. Orhan speaks finally, his voice steady, echoing softly through the stone, cutting the silence without breaking it. Every detail here exists because someone decided it should. Every shadow, every line, every movement is intentional, and I am no longer reacting. I am choosing, defining the next step on my own terms. And the man watches him with narrowed eyes, aware now that the chessboard has shifted, that Orhan is no longer a piece moved by circumstance, but a player capable of rewriting the board entirely. Another vibration rolls through the chamber, louder this time, and the walls hum faintly, responding not to action but to presence, as if the very stone recognizes that Orhan has begun to impose his will upon the space, and a faint glow emerges along the etched symbols on the walls, tracing lines that were previously invisible, revealing hidden paths, subtle traps, and strategic alignments that had been invisible until now, and Orhan's mind catalogs each one. Every insight sharpening his understanding of the labyrinth around him. A figure steps slightly forward from the shadows, testing the distance, and the Alps instinctively tighten their formation, but Orhan lifts a hand to stop them, signaling that observation and patience are stronger than immediate response, and the man across from him inclines slightly, acknowledging that Orhan is not merely reacting to his environment, but controlling how he interacts with it, bending perception and action together in a single, deliberate rhythm that the chamber itself seems to recognize. Orhan moves again, slow, precise, stepping into the center of the chamber, closing the distance between him and the man, but never reckless. Each Arabic ket, Arabic tot, Arabic wow, Arabic tet merbut a message. Each breath synchronized with the pulse of the space, and the figures at the edges shift minutely, leaning forward slightly, their attention absolute, as if the entire room is waiting for a single motion to break the suspended tension into something decisive. The man finally speaks, his voice quiet, measured, deliberate. You understand the chamber now, yet understanding does not grant victory. Victory is choice, not insight. Will you act or continue observing? And Orhan's eyes do not flicker, his stance remains unwavering as he replies, observation is preparation, awareness is readiness. I act only when the moment demands it, and the moment is now approaching. The low, resonant hum vibrates through the floor, rising steadily, and the glow along the walls pulses with increasing intensity, revealing new pathways, new alignments, hidden compartments, and every symbol along the walls begins to shimmer subtly, casting distorted reflections onto the chamber's floor, as if the space itself acknowledges that Orhan has begun to master the rhythm of its design rather than merely navigate it. The Alps shift with him instinctively, forming tighter arcs, their eyes scanning the illuminated patterns, their minds processing faster than any spoken instruction, and Orhan's gaze sweeps across the chamber, calculating distances, anticipating movement, predicting responses, and in that moment he is no longer simply present. He is fully integrated into the structure, the chamber, and the unfolding sequence, commanding its tempo without a word, without a strike, without a gesture, beyond his deliberate, controlled steps. From the far end, another figure steps forward, slightly taller than the last, moving with deliberate grace, and the man across from Orhan inclines subtly, signaling recognition that this is the final piece of the challenge, the true confrontation at the heart of the chamber. And Orhan's expression does not change because he has anticipated this, prepared for it, and now views the sequence as inevitable, each movement of the new figure simply a variable he already understands, catalogs, and controls mentally before it even occurs. The chamber responds again with a subtle vibration, the glowing patterns along the walls intensifying, and dust falls from the ceiling in fine motes, carried not by air but by the chamber's pulse itself, as if the space confirms the importance of every choice being made. And Orhan's Alps lean slightly forward, sensing that the next step will determine everything, the flow of battle, the meaning of this test, and the alignment of every remaining force within the space. Orhan raises his hand slowly, and the Alps freeze, trusting his timing absolutely, and he steps forward once deliberately to stand directly in the center of the chamber, narrowing the distance between himself, the first man, and the new figure emerging. And in that alignment, the tension becomes nearly tangible, stretching the space itself into a perfect balance where the next action will define not just survival but command of the entire environment. The first man inclines subtly, acknowledging Orhan's composure, and says, his voice low but steady, you have learned to move within the chamber as it moves around you. Few can do this. Orhan replies simply, few survive observing without reaction, fewer control the flow without hesitation. Another low vibration rolls beneath their feet, and the glowing symbols shift once more, now forming subtle arrows, alignments, and pathways that only someone fully attentive could read. And Orhan's eyes move over them all, cataloging, integrating, predicting, understanding, because this is not a test of strength. It is a test of awareness, precision, patience, and timing, and he meets it with total control over his own mind, body, and formation. The chamber's vibrations pulse again, subtle at first, then growing stronger, almost as if the stone itself is testing Orhan Bey's awareness, responding only to those capable of perceiving its rhythm. And as he adjusts his stance slightly, synchronizing with the pulse, the Alps mirror him perfectly, each man poised and ready, their movements invisible yet perfectly coordinated, as if guided by thought rather than command. The second figure steps fully into the open now, his shadow stretching across the glowing patterns, yet he makes no move toward aggression, instead standing with deliberate calm, forcing Orhan to read every micro-gesture, every weight shift, every glance, and Orhan does so without hesitation. Absorbing the information like the chamber itself is feeding him the data needed to anticipate, counter, and ultimately control the sequence. A distant echo resonates from the far wall, carrying the sound of stone grinding slowly, and the glow along the etched symbols ripples in response, forming lines and arcs that were previously invisible, mapping invisible pathways through the space, and Orhan's eyes trace them carefully, integrating each new piece of information into his understanding of the chamber, nodding hazards, nodding opportunities, nodding how every element interacts with movement and intention. The first man shifts slightly, a subtle gesture meant to probe Orhan's reaction, and Orhan steps just half a pace forward, not rushed, not abrupt, but deliberate, precise, as if even the smallest movement carries calculated weight, and the Alps adjust automatically, forming arcs around him that both protect and position them strategically, creating layers of control within a space that was designed to confine and test them. Orhan's hand rests lightly near the hilt of his sword, but he does not draw, because this moment is not about violence. It is about observation, anticipation, and the silent assertion of control. And as he steps again, the chamber hums faintly beneath their feet, the patterns on the walls shifting slightly, revealing a new alignment, one that shows which pathways lead to dominance and which to entrapment, and Orhan notes each one without hesitation. A figure at the edge of the chamber moves slightly, testing the formation of Orhan's Alps, and though the movement is small, the response is immediate. The nearest men shift to cover the position while maintaining overall cohesion, signaling to the observer that the command is seamless, that discipline is absolute, and that Orhan's awareness is complete, flowing through every individual in the formation without the need for speech or signal. Second figure tilts his head subtly, recognizing this control, and says in a low, deliberate tone, "You have mastered your men, yet the chamber itself is not conquered by formation alone. Awareness must extend beyond position," and Orhan replies with quiet authority. Formation is only the beginning. Awareness extends to space, shadow, and timing, integrating every element into movement, decision, and action. And when the moment arrives, each response will be exact, precise, and unstoppable. The chamber responds again, vibrations intensifying, and the glow along the walls forms a pattern that appears almost like a map, highlighting areas of vulnerability, exposure, and advantage, and Orhan studies it meticulously, tracing each path with his eyes, cataloging the interactions of light, shadow, distance, and timing, while his Alps shift imperceptibly, holding positions that now align perfectly with the unseen architecture of the test. The stone above shifts slightly, dislodged by the vibrations, and dust falls in thin lines that catch the glow, yet no one flinches. The motion is understood as part of the environment, part of the challenge, and Orhan's gaze sweeps quickly across the chamber to note its effect, integrating it instantly into his mental map, knowing that even small changes may reveal opportunities or signal danger. The first man steps forward now, closer than before, his shadow overlapping Orhan's space, testing not his body but his mind, and Orhan remains perfectly composed, his eyes fixed calmly on the figure, his posture unwavering, every micro-movement controlled, every subtle breath measured, communicating that he is ready, aware, and fully capable of managing both men and environment simultaneously, and the chamber itself seems to acknowledge this precision. Another vibration rolls through the stone beneath their feet, a faint hum growing into a low resonance, and the glow along the walls intensifies, revealing previously hidden pathways, each line marking a sequence, a choice, a potential consequence, and Orhan's mind catalogs each possibility with lightning clarity, predicting not only what could happen but what must be done, and where every response will be exact, leaving no room for chance or error. The second figure takes a slow step to the side, creating a subtle angle, a visual test of Orhan's perception and control, and Orhan shifts slightly, adjusting the alignment of his stance, his hand hovering near his sword, his eyes scanning both figures and the chamber simultaneously, his Alps responding instantly to every nuance, forming a living extension of his awareness, their coordination absolute, invisible, and deadly in precision. Orhan speaks softly, his voice carrying calm authority through the chamber. Every step, every gesture, every sound is accounted for. We move with knowledge, not reaction. Timing dictates power and observation ensures mastery, and the first man inclines his head subtly, recognizing that Orhan's control extends beyond physical command into mental dominance of the environment and situation, acknowledging the completion of a stage in the test without the need for further confirmation. A faint vibration shifts underfoot, and the glowing symbols along the walls now form complex patterns, interlocking arcs and paths, some safe, some dangerous, and Orhan's gaze moves fluidly, tracing the sequences, noting timing, distances, alignments, and potential hazards, committing them to memory in real time, understanding that mastery of the chamber requires both anticipation and integration of all subtle cues simultaneously. The first figure steps slightly closer again, testing both Orhan's patience and control, and Orhan does not flinch, adjusting his weight imperceptibly, shifting his stance while keeping his focus forward, commanding his men silently, forming a defensive and offensive balance, demonstrating absolute calm and precision, showing that his awareness extends beyond the immediate into prediction, control, and readiness for the unexpected. The chamber hums again, faintly but increasingly, the glowing patterns flickering, forming new alignments, almost like the stone is reacting to Orhan's movements. Understanding his integration of the environment and the Alps' tight formation around him subtly, each micro-adjustment reinforcing cohesion, readiness, and trust, all synchronized without spoken words, all flowing seamlessly from Orhan's presence and awareness. Another figure emerges from a shadowed corner, stepping carefully, testing the formation's reach and response, and the Alps adjust instinctively, positioning themselves to maintain both coverage and alignment, their coordination flawless, and Orhan's gaze sweeps the chamber, mentally plotting pathways, predicting trajectories, reading the interplay of space, shadow, and light, every detail integrated into a complete operational map in his mind. Orhan speaks again softly, calmly, but firmly. Observation is control, patience is preparation, awareness is command, every moment, every detail is a choice, and every choice will dictate outcome, and the first man inclines subtly, acknowledging that Orhan is no longer reacting to the chamber but bending it to his understanding, mastering its rules, and transforming the environment into an extension of his own strategy. The chamber responds to this assertion, Vibrations increase slightly, dust falling along the glowing lines, marking paths, sequences, and intersections that Orhan now sees clearly, integrating them instantly, moving without error, preparing for the moment when understanding will convert into decisive action. And the Alps continue to mirror his intent flawlessly, their discipline forming an invisible web of readiness throughout the entire space. The path does not welcome them. It absorbs them, swallowing sound, swallowing light, swallowing even the certainty of direction as Orhan Bey steps forward without hesitation. His presence steady, his Arabic ket, Arabic tot, Arabic wow, Arabic khalif, Arabic tam measured with a precision that does not seek safety but establishes control. And behind him his Alps follow in disciplined silence, each man aware that this descent is not into terrain but into intention. Into a design so carefully constructed that even Arabic Khalif, Arabic Lam, Arabic Ha, Arabic Wow, Arabic Khalif, Arabic Hamza feels altered, heavier, as if it carries the memory of those who have passed through before, those who may have entered with confidence and never returned. The walls of the narrow passage rise unevenly on either side, jagged yet deliberate, not carved by Arabic Khalif, Arabic Lam, Arabic Tot, Arabic Ba, Arabic Yet, Arabic Tain, Arabic Tetmarbut alone, but shaped, corrected, refined. And as the faint light from above begins to fade into a distant echo replaced by a dim, almost unnatural glow emanating from deeper within, Orhan's eyes adjust not just to the darkness, but to the pattern within it, because darkness here is not absence, it is arrangement. It is control over what is seen and what is concealed, and every shadow now carries weight. No one speaks. Not because they fear, but because they understand. Words here would not carry power, they would reveal it. And revelation in this place is vulnerability. A distant sound breaks the silence, not sudden, not sharp, but rhythmic, controlled, like the steady Arabic dada, Arabic rot, Arabic bav, something metallic against stone, echoing through the passage with a consistency that speaks not of chaos but of process, of something being prepared, something already in motion long before Orhan Bey chose this path. And as the sound repeats, neither closer nor farther, it becomes clear. It is not meant to guide, it is meant to measure. Orhan raises his hands slightly, not stopping the movement but refining it, tightening the formation, adjusting the spacing between his men without a single word spoken, because positioning now is not reaction. It is survival within a structure designed by another mind, and every Arabic ket, Arabic tot, Arabic wow, Arabic tet merbuta forward must not only advance, it must understand. As they move deeper, the passage widens suddenly, not into openness, but into a chamber vast enough to breathe yet confined enough to control. Its Arabic scene, Arabic half, Arabic fast, supported by towering stone pillars that seem natural at first glance but reveal, upon closer inspection, markings, lines, cuts, symbols etched with precision, not decorative, not random, but intentional, forming a language not spoken but enacted, and Orhan's gaze moves across them, absorbing, cataloging. Because every mark is a message, and every message is part of the design. Torches ignite. Not gradually. Not by Arabic Khalif, Arabic Lam, Arabic Yet, Arabic Dal. But all at once. Arabic Dal, Arabic Khalif, Arabic Hamzat, Arabic Rot, Arabic Tetmerbuta, fire bursting into controlled life around the chamber, their flames steady, unwavering, as if untouched by Arabic Khalif, Arabic Lam, Arabic Hat, Arabic Wow, Arabic Khalif, Arabic Hamza, illuminating figures that were already there, standing, waiting, positioned long before Orhan's arrival, their presence silent yet undeniable, not soldiers in formation, not warriors preparing for battle, but something else entirely. Something trained not just to fight, but to observe. The Alps shift, instinct tightening their grip on their swords, but still, no command is given because Orhan does not move, does not reach for his weapon, does not allow the moment to collapse into reaction, because this is not the strike. This is the revelation. From the far end of the chamber, elevated slightly above the rest, the mastermind steps into the light, his figure no longer concealed by shadow, yet still not fully revealed because what defines him is not face, but presence. And as his gaze meets Orhan's once more, there is no surprise, no urgency, only acknowledgement, as if this meeting was not uncertain, but inevitable. "You came," the mastermind says, his voice carrying effortlessly through the chamber, not raised, not forced, yet reaching every corner with clarity that suggests control not just over space, but over perception itself. "I chose to," Orhan replies, his tone calm, grounded, unaffected by the structure surrounding him, because he understands now, this place is not meant to intimidate, it is meant to define. A faint shift passes through the figures encircling them, not movement, not threat, but attention sharpening, because the moment they have been positioned for is no longer approaching. It has arrived. "You see more now?" the mastermind continues, stepping down slowly from his elevated position, each Arabic ket, Arabic tot, Arabic wow, Arabic tet merbuta deliberate, each movement measured, not just the traps and not just the signals, but the structure beneath them, and Orhan's gaze remains fixed, unwavering, because what he sees is no longer fragmented, it is whole. This was never about capturing me, Orhan says, his voice low yet absolute, carrying not defiance but realization. It was about bringing me here to see what you have built. And a silence follows, not empty but confirming, because the truth once spoken cannot be withdrawn. The mastermind stops a few Arabic ket, Arabic tot, Arabic wow, Arabic khalif, Arabic ta away, close enough that distance no longer separates them, yet far enough that space still holds meaning, and for a moment neither speaks, because words now are no longer tools of testing, they are instruments of consequence. Yes, the mastermind finally says, and this time there is no layer, no hidden edge, only clarity, because a war of this scale cannot be understood from the outside, it must be seen from within. And as his words settle, the chamber itself seems to deepen, its purpose no longer hidden behind illusion, but standing fully revealed. Around them, the figures begin to move, not toward Orhan, not aggressively, but with coordination so precise it feels less like motion and more like transformation, their positions shifting, aligning, forming patterns that extend beyond the chamber itself, as if this space is not the center, but a node, one point in a network far larger than what the eye can capture. You have been tested, the mastermind continues, his voice now quieter yet heavier with meaning, not to break you, but to measure whether you can stand here and still remain yourself. And Orhan does not look away, does not allow the weight of the moment to alter his stance, because identity, he knows, is the final ground of control. I did not come here to understand your war, Orhan says, his tone firm, unwavering. I came here to end its hold. And for the first time, something shifts, not in the chamber, not in the figures, but in the mastermind himself, a pause that is not weakness, but recognition. Then you misunderstand, the mastermind replies, and though his voice remains calm, there is now depth within it that was not present before. Because this war does not hold you, it reveals you, and the words settle like weight upon the air, pressing not with force but with inevitability. A distant rumble echoes through the chamber, not violent, not destructive, but powerful, like the movement of something vast beneath the Arabic khalif, Arabic lam, Arabic hamzatat leaf, Arabic rot, Arabic data itself. And as the pillars seem to respond, their markings faintly illuminated, Orhan's awareness sharpens further. Arabic lam, Arabic hamzatat leaf, Arabic noon, Arabic ha. This place is not static, it is active. Alive with intention. This is only one layer, the mastermind says, stepping slightly aside, his hand extending not in command, but an indication toward a deeper passage now revealed beyond the chamber, darker, narrower, yet pulsing with a presence that cannot be ignored. Beyond this is where decisions are no longer tested but made, and the implication is clear: what lies ahead is not observation. It is transformation. Orhan's Alps glance toward him, not in doubt, not in hesitation, but in readiness that waits only for his will to take form, because whatever this place is, whatever it was designed to do, it ends with him. Orhan steps forward. Not quickly, not forcefully, but with certainty that does not seek approval, does not require validation, because the path ahead is no longer chosen by the enemy, it is claimed by him. And as he moves past the mastermind, their shoulders nearly aligning, the distance between them reduced to nothing more than a breath, Orhan speaks, quietly, deliberately, yet with a weight that settles deeper than any command ever could. You built a system to control the flow of war. A step forward. Now you will watch it break. And without looking back, he enters the darkness beyond, where the next truth waits, not to be revealed, but to be decided. The darkness beyond the chamber does not deepen. It sharpens, narrowing into a passage so precise, so deliberately confined, that every Arabic ket, Arabic tot, Arabic wow, Arabic tetmerbuta Orhan Bey takes feels measured not just by distance, but by design, as if the very walls are not there to contain him, but to observe him, to calculate him, to refine the understanding of his movement with every breath he draws. And still he does not slow, does not hesitate. Because hesitation here would not grant safety, it would confirm expectation. Behind him, his Alps follow in absolute discipline, their formation tighter now, not out of fear, but out of awareness that space itself has become a variable, a factor shaped by unseen intent. And as the faint echoes of their movement stretch unnaturally along the narrow corridor, returning not as reflections but as distortions, it becomes clear: sound itself is no longer trusted, and silence is no longer neutral. A faint glow begins to form ahead. Not fire, not torchlight, but something colder, steadier, almost unnatural in its consistency. And as they draw closer, the passage opens once more, but not into a chamber of Arabic khalif, Arabic noon, Arabic ta, Arabic thought, Arabic khalif, Arabic rot, not into a space of confrontation, but into something far more unsettling: a hall. Wide, symmetrical, perfectly aligned. Its walls marked with the same etched symbols, but here they are no longer scattered. They are ordered, forming sequences, patterns that stretch from floor to ceiling, repeating yet evolving as if they are not decorations, but records, a language of movement, of strategy, of war itself translated into form. Orhan's gaze moves across them, not lingering but absorbing, because what he sees is no longer abstract. It is structured memory, each mark a decision, each line a consequence, each pattern a reflection of paths taken and paths denied, and in that moment he understands, this place is not merely constructed. It is accumulated. A history not written in words, but in outcomes. The sound returns. Closer now. Clearer. Not Arabic Khalif, Arabic clam, Arabic het, Arabic dal, Arabic yet, Arabic dal striking stone. But Arabic het, Arabic taught, Arabic wow, Arabic Khalif, Arabic ta. Slow. Measured. Approaching not from ahead, but from behind. Orhan does not turn immediately, because instinct is no longer allowed to lead. Only control. Stay in formation, he says quietly, his voice steady, carrying through his men without force, because discipline now is not maintained by command, it is sustained by trust, and as the footsteps draw nearer, no one breaks, no one shifts, because they understand, the next moment is not one of attack, but of revelation. The steps stop. Directly behind them. Close enough to feel. Far enough to remain unseen. And then, a voice. Familiar. Not by sound, but by presence. You walk deeper than most would dare, it says, calm, composed, yet carrying something beneath it, not threat, not challenge, but weight, and as Orhan slowly turns, his movement controlled, deliberate, the source reveals itself, not from shadow, not from concealment, but from certainty. The second figure, the one who stood beside the mastermind, now no longer distant, no longer silent. His face partially revealed beneath the dim, unnatural light, yet his identity still incomplete, because what defines him is not who he is, but what he represents. You were never meant to reach this point, the figure continues, stepping forward, his Arabic het, Arabic taught, Arabic wow, Arabic Khalif, Arabic ta echoing with unnatural clarity, as if the space itself amplifies his presence, not because it is impossible, but because it requires something most do not possess, and Orhan's eyes remain fixed, unwavering, because whatever this place is, he has already crossed the threshold. Understanding, Orhan says quietly. The figure pauses. Not in surprise, but in acknowledgement. Yes, he replies, his tone lowering slightly, but understanding alone does not grant passage, it only reveals what must be faced. And as his words settle, the hall itself seems to respond, the patterns along the walls faintly shifting under the dim light, as if activated not by touch but by presence. A low vibration begins. Subtle, deep, not heard, but felt. Through the Arabic Khalif, Arabic clam, Arabic hamzatat talif, Arabic rot, Arabic dada. Through the air. Through the space between breaths. And then, the floor changes. Not collapsing. Not breaking. But dividing. Segments shifting with precision, silent yet powerful, forming lines that separate space into controlled sections, isolating positions, defining boundaries, and in an instant the formation of Orhan's Alps is no longer whole. It is structured, divided, each man placed exactly where the design intends. No panic. No Arabic sada, Arabic wa, Arabic ta raised. Because they have been prepared for this. Because Orhan has prepared them. This is where leadership is measured, the second figure says, his voice steady, his gaze fixed not on the Alps but on Orhan alone, not in command, but in control when command is no longer possible. And the implication is clear. This is not a trap of Arabic Khalif, Arabic lam, Arabic half, Arabic wow, Arabic tet merbuda. It is a test of separation. Orhan's eyes move, not rapidly, not frantically, but completely, mapping the Arabic Khalif, Arabic lam, Arabic jim, Arabic dal, Arabic yet, Arabic dal structure. The positions, the distances, the Arabic meme, Arabic het, Arabic dal, Arabic wow, Arabic dal paths between his men. And within seconds, the situation is no longer chaos. It is information. You divide space, Orhan says, his voice calm, grounded, cutting through the tension.